Yo, what's up, everybody out there? Welcome to a brand new podcast with these awesome dudes right here. This show right here is called the Sin Bin Podcast. Now, what is the Sin Bin Podcast? JP, take it away.
Okay, so the Sin Bin Podcast is exactly what it sounds like. It's a bin full of Vin sins, vinegar syndromes, or in this case, the Gashaver video, or however you say that.
The Geyser.
The Geyser video. So this is a brainchild of mine and Tyler's and Tony's and Moodz's, but basically the idea here is we get together once a month and we each review a new release from Vinegar Syndrome, and then we do a co-review of probably the most popular title of the batch, and then we talk about the films and the special features from time to time and stuff like that. And it'll be monthly. So every month when Vinegar Syndrome announces their new titles, we'll pick up the ones that we're going to cover. And I know Moodz pretty much buys everything. Tony buys
in some
everything.
cases, just every title.
Right. In some cases.
I plan on watching everything.
Actually, it's not some cases. It's like every month.
Right. And we'll also have, maybe we'll throw in some like retro titles every once in a while. There's different possibilities there. Sort of a revolving door of guest hosts as well. Like I want to get Parker on here one time, and Dan, who's
for some porn titles would be so
Mason.
It probably shouldn't be that hard to get people on this podcast, considering Vinegar Syndrome is such a popular label. Most of us horror collectors out there know what it is and probably have a ton of their titles and respect and love the labels, because there's so many freaking sub-labels of Vinegar Syndrome. That's something that we'll get into and explain if you're not 100% familiar with that. But yeah, so it shouldn't be that hard to find other people, I would assume.
Right, absolutely. And it's my favorite label out there, probably, just because the vast types of films they release, from Hong Kong stuff to weird cult horror stuff to regional horror stuff to porn to, I don't know, if we're gonna review porn, we might need to bring Dan in for that one because he's like the porn guy.
Definitely should next month, because that's like their annual porn sale.
Oh yeah, February is there.
Oh yeah, he's gonna get a whole bit of porn.
right.
The extra sin bin.
The extra
After hours.
Hours.
Yeah, ultra concentrated sin bin.
The back room. You remember in the video store?
Oh my god, that's so funny. The back room.
Do not enter unless you're 18 or older, or whatever.
Yeah. That's Dan's segment.
I mean, half the time as a kid, you wouldn't even, like, if they didn't even have that sign up in the video store, you would have never made your way over there. It was the sign that made you want to go in there. I'm like, what do you have to be so old to go in there? I gotta go in there.
Trying to peek in at the curtain,
Totally. Yeah.
You just catch a glimpse of a boob.
I honestly never went to a video store like that, and so literally like I had a Blockbuster down the street, so that's just where I went. But yeah, but there was like this little shop, like it was like what has to be like the last of like the mom and pop like video stores, and it was like mostly a convenience store at this point too. But I was like in there, I was like 22, like I was barely over 20, or like maybe a little bit younger than that. And I remember this guy looking at the register, like, could see I was kind of eyeballing the room. The guy just went, "Hey, buddy, you want to go take a peek back there?" I was like, "Hell yeah!"
Yeah, nowadays you go to jail for saying something like that.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I had pretty much every one of the mom and pop stores I had a back room, and those usually like neon lights and stuff like that. You could see
a black curtain
through the curtain. Yep. And so that's generally the idea behind this short sort of show is
did you
to
mention
just cover
that
Vinegar Syndrome?
So it's once a month, so we're going to be picking titles from that specific month,
right? So this one's a little bit weird because January being the first month that we're starting this, they actually didn't really have did they have December titles?
No, it's partners only month.
Right. So
December and
actually
June.
The stuff from like November and before. I think Redneck Zombies was a little before the December title or the November titles, but it's still relatively around that time.
Right.
But yeah, so next month we each take our turns picking what title we want to do, and then we'll have like usually the most popular title as sort of the one that we all watch. But we can, it's kind of a no pressure thing. So like if you want to watch it, like if Moodz wants to watch, you know, the title I picked and the title Tyler picked and Tony picked or whatever, he can, but we're not requiring it. It's just a, you know, we already watch a lot of stuff for other things. This is supposed to be like a casual thing. But I'll probably most often watch the other stuff that people do just because I'll get it in the mail and it'll give me an excuse to watch it,
Right.
but it's, you don't have to.
Right.
And then at the end of this show, we'll announce what we're doing in February so that if anybody wants to pick up stuff and follow along, you can. And then anything else that I'm missing? Tyler, Tony? Oh, I guess Moodz, you guys know him. He's probably the most known out of all of us. 22 Shots host. I'm on 22 Shots as well. So is Tyler. Tony is a friend of ours who's been a listener of 22 Shots for how long, Tony?
I don't know, probably I would say 2015, maybe the end of 2014. Been a while.
So pretty
go
much
way back,
when we started almost. But Tony, me and Tyler met Tony last year at Cinema Wasteland. Moodz will meet him this year, probably. If you go, Tony, you're going, right?
For sure. I'm only like an hour and a half away. No reason why I shouldn't go.
Oh, you gotta be going there, man. I gotta take a couple flights there and then drive down for 4 hours.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Especially if you're going, I have no excuse.
Yeah, no, it's I'm really looking forward to heading back to Wasteland and doing that up again. So yeah, that
so
was one of
fun.
The wife just loved it. She had such a blast meeting everybody, and it was great.
Yeah,
so
Aaron's
so
awesome.
much fun.
But yeah, Tony, this is his, I guess, is this your first like hosting on a podcast?
Yeah, I would say officially, unless we count whatever Dan's thing was last month, but that was the most like backdoor podcasting shit, which is like hell of a like introduction to podcasting.
Gotcha.
Dan's the porn guy, and we're talking about backdooring. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, Dan's the cameraman.
It's interesting. Yeah, I would probably say that Tyler is probably the third official host to 22 Shots right now. He's been on so much. It's like,
right.
Yeah, we never officially said, hey, do you want to come actually join every episode? He's just like, yeah, I'm free every Sunday. We're like, okay, cool, man.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. That's usually that's kind of how Dave joined too. You know, and Kyle and Derek. Well, Derek kind of like forced himself in there.
More or less, yeah.
But, I feel like I kind of did too. It was just like, hey,
no,
come on, talk about Italian movies.
I feel like at this point with 22 Shots, man, we're like the Spinal Tap of podcasting. We just like, you know, Spinal Tap replaces their drummer like every 5 weeks because he keeps dying.
100%. Yeah,
I'm not saying that Tyler's going anywhere, but yeah, I'm just
the only constant is me and Moodz. Like we're the dynamic duo. You know?
We're like Kiss, man, with Gene and Paul. You know, it's like revolving door with the rest, though.
Right.
But
which is fun. I like having, you know, we've always said that they're friends of the show. Like the people that we like, that we're friends with, that come on, Dave Z, Carly, Parker, Tyler, Kyle back in the day. Like they have open invites, you know, they're part of the 22 Shots family. So
I actually always forget about Kyle sometimes, and he's been on the show a lot. Like he actually has been double digit kind of thing. And yeah, he's always fun. But
yeah,
busy
that's
life,
my homie. Yeah, I haven't talked to him in a bit, but Kyle's always been my buddy. So yeah, that's basically the concept behind this here show once a month. We're trying this video format. We've never really done a video format podcast. I think
the only time we've ever really done video format is for like extended lists of top 10 shows and stuff.
I'm wrong. Our very first show together was a video show.
Oh, Burial Ground.
I didn't. Oh, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, we did.
Which is actually named after Burial Grounds, the pod or the movie. So
yeah.
But
I guess I'll go first with my pick this last month. Oh, actually, you know what? We totally forgot. We wanted to mention what Vinegar Syndrome is putting out for January, right?
Yeah.
So they had their subscriber week, which, by the way, I don't like how they do that week, because for the longest time I've always bought the package. You know what I mean? They would usually just put all the new releases in a package and you could just buy that. But for subscriber week, they don't do that. They announce a title every day. because I guess they want people to do the full year subscription thing.
Yeah, that fucked me up this year, man, because everyone was like, I clicked into one of the chats and everyone was talking about one of the titles. I'm like, when the fuck did that get released? Like today. And I'm like, but they just released some stuff yesterday. They're like, yeah, it's every day. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
for
I
fuck's
thought it
sakes.
was
I'm like,
all gonna be
you
that
need,
first day.
because I have the attention span of a fucking goldfish sometimes. And I'm like, Jesus. So I was like picking up stuff every single day. And the wife's like, what's with all these orders? And I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, I don't mind, I guess. Like, it is kind of annoying if you're waiting on like a specific sub label, but whatever, I get it.
I like the daily
marketing
deals
ploy
to like keep you coming back. I think that's a good idea, but I wish they did just put it on one day.
Oh, it completely makes sense why they do it, and it works.
Yeah,
it gets everyone.
Well, the thing is, like, it kind of like there's like maybe some deal like of the $10 deals I would have bought in, or like, you know, that ones were like 14 or something, where I was a little on the fence, but I was like, I don't want to buy this, and then something in like two insane things get released on Saturday or Sunday or something.
Yeah, so if they did the daily deal and they kept it like the stuff from Monday just is there the rest of the week, that would be fine. But they just pepper in the things. I kind of get what you're saying. I don't really take part in the daily deals that much because I have most of the stuff that's on there.
I've found the same thing. Yeah,
I usually do like get a bunch of stuff on those, but the deals I felt like weren't as good this time, and I did end up having like a lot of stuff I would have bought in traditionally. They use a lot of the same titles, I think.
Yeah, there were a lot of the same from last year too.
Yeah, I only picked up one title the entire time. It was $10, like from a partner label.
Yeah, they probably just try to get rid of stock with what they have the most of. You know what I mean? But so this January slate, pretty big slate, bigger than probably normal, I would say. But the releases, so they did the regular Vinegar Syndrome releases are the Horrible Dr. Hitchcock 4K, the Forgotten Jolly Volume 6 4K, and I believe Santet is that the other one?
Yeah, Santet 1 and 2.
Santet 1 and 2. And then you got a VSU. Is there a VSU there somewhere?
Yeah, it's Southern Comfort.
Oh, that's the VSU?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's a VSU, yeah.
Is there a VSA?
Yes, there's the Black Cat 1 and 2.
Black Cat.
Oh, I didn't know it was VSA. That's cool.
So and then there's the VSL, which is Sex Mission.
It's like ridiculous, all these sub labels.
And then there's
it just keeps going.
What is it? VSP?
Yeah, the Vinegar Syndrome pictures, yeah.
This is ridiculous. And then and then there are two other the new sub label
Cinematograph.
Yeah, this one messed me up. This one messed me up because it didn't start with Vinegar Syndrome. I was like, cinematography. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Right. And they announced two titles for that.
Yeah.
Little Darlings and Red Rock West.
With my man Nick Cage, man. I'm so excited.
I feel like this is gonna be like Vinegar Syndrome does Criterion.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think those are two like kind of like if like Vinegar Syndrome like titles that like kind of like fit into that mold.
It also kind of makes up for the loss of Fun City.
Just by the name of it too, like it kind of just like it makes it trying to sound like more like it's like an auteur line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, losing Fun City on the partner side was kind of shitty, man, because I was loving that label. I had everything up to the point, and then they switched out, and it just honestly it wasn't worth ordering from them, the shipping and shit. It's like it's kind of like TerrorVision for myself too. It's so expensive to order from them. I'm like, man, dude, I wasn't going out of my way to collect everything TerrorVision. I still wouldn't. Some of the titles
I kind of stopped. I was
not that interested.
I had everything for a while. But they just started cranking. Like at first they were just doing like 1 or 2 a month. Now they're doing like 6 or 7.
I don't know who like I've never seen a label ever do that before where they announce like 30 or 40 titles at one time. Yeah, these are periodically going to be coming until the year 2054. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it was insane.
That's the weirdest schedule ever. But yeah, Culture Shock, that one hurt too, because I was loving that label. It's like a lot of like lower budget 80s and 90s kind of shit like that. And then they just stopped, and I almost died. Because
now you got Umbrella on there, you got IFC on there.
Yeah, I was just climbing through the labels, and I was like surprised to see Umbrella. I didn't know that was on there, and then that's when I found a Film Movement, and I didn't even know that was a partner label.
What's there like one of the brand new ones? It was like oh shit, what's it called? It actually made me laugh. It's brand new. Art Label. It's literally called Art Label.
Oh.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck?
And
Is
we
it like
thought we were
modern
bad
stuff?
at naming things.
Well, I didn't realize, but I picked up the first release. It's called Surf Reality, and it's like a bunch of like, it's like a collection of movies and stuff like that. And I didn't even know what label it was on. And then I was like, oh, what's this new art label? I clicked to see what they had. And I was like, oh, I picked one up already. I just thought it looked cool. And I was like, oh shit. But it was called Art Label. I'm like, that's fucking hilarious, man. So
A lot of their partner labels kind of have cool names.
yeah. It's a lot of the partner labels are I like more of like the older, you know, like the Culture Shocks and the Saturn's Core and you know labels like that. And a lot of the newer labels that they have are more for, I would say, like newer films and stuff. I don't buy a lot of like modern
Yeah, I don't
films.
really like to buy a lot of modern stuff.
And I've noticed with a lot
Same.
of the new partner labels are putting out a lot of modern stuff, and I'm just like, nah, I'll pass on that. But that's just my taste for what I want to own and stuff. Like AGFA, they put out some, I'm grabbing it because they put out some of the weirdest titles ever. Like that is the most bizarre label in the world.
It reminds me of like Something Weird or something like that, like back in the day.
Well, it is pretty much all those titles.
Oh yeah, they are. I forgot. That's why.
Yeah, that's what it is. Something weird. It's just it is
Yeah,
weird,
yeah.
but they put out a blend of pretty interesting titles and shit. So yeah,
Yeah, they just put out Shredder Orpheus. That was like almost like a holy grail title if you're looking for like skateboard movies.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. So I guess we'll start with me here. The title that I picked for this is actually a VSA, and it's one that I had been interested in for a while. I remember Dave Parker talking about this film, and that is A Gun for Jennifer from 1997, which is a weird year for horror and exploitation.
You know what's funny? I was watching that movie the other night for the first time. Sorry to cut you off, but I didn't realize it was from 97 because I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, well, this is definitely in like 1990, 91.
Yeah.
And then I looked and I was like, 97. Wow. Like they weren't trying to look retro and it just came off like that because even the wardrobes, the haircuts, everything didn't scream 97 to me.
Okay.
Like a lot of that shit
probably
was
know
like,
why, because it started filming in 93.
That completely makes sense because there was a lot of like that kind of 93 mullets and like certain clothes and stuff. Everything was like early that 90s where it was just kind of changing from the 80s into the 90s and it was like that whole 90210 kind of thing.
Yeah.
It felt very grunge too, which is kind of like way past 97.
But just the way it was filmed, like I didn't actually look to see what it was filmed on, but they definitely
16 millimeter.
It is 60 millimeter, right? Yeah. Like low stock 60 millimeter because it looks a lot older even than your typical 60 millimeter shot film. Even from the 70s, you see ones that look better than that. It's crazy. Right.
But so yeah, this film, by the way, I do have one complaint with the VSAs. I love them, but I always find it hard to put them back in.
I agree
without it getting caught on the plastic.
Yeah.
Like this one actually tore when I tried to put it back in.
I always put mine in upside down.
You know what I do?
I tried that and it's still doing the same thing.
Dang.
What I do is like when you're putting it in, you just kind of put your finger and
squeeze it a little
bit. Yeah, kind of flex out the box with a squeeze or whatever. Mine going fine.
You just gotta finger a little bit.
Yeah, you just gotta.
I always
work that pinky. Got to work that.
I always
pinky.
remember that after I tried putting it in. Like I always put it in like an 8 the first time.
Just remember a pink.
Well, you are kind of an idiot, so
a pinky for Jennifer. A pinky for Jennifer.
A pinky for Jennifer.
So yeah, I snagged one of my VSAs a long time ago, and I about like shrieked. And I was like, never again. So I'm like super crazy about that.
One of my older ones, I think it's Evil Town, is all shredded up, man. It's like totally torn up because I like went to go put it in and I was like being a goldfish, tension span. I was like, oh shit, it's like all fucking run up. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sakes. I actually got a VSA
I never did anything
where the plastic was all fucked up inside of it. So factory sealed. Like, so I'm like, even the factories can't even get it properly.
Like get it this in there one properly. Right here, I don't know if you could see that, but the corner is actually
I definitely have one. It's got a little nick,
and it bugs me so bad.
I know it does.
But so yeah, this film is pretty interesting. It's sort of like a exploitation type of movie here. It follows a young woman who is fleeing Ohio from her abusive husband. She goes to New York City, where she immediately is attacked by a group of street thugs who plan on probably raping her. And then all of a sudden, these other chicks show up and basically murder them, the thugs that is, and they're sort of this vigilante group of women who all sort of have a history with crappy men, abusers, stuff like that. The one pair of sisters, their father abused them, who was a Green Beret, and the older sister murdered him and then went to prison, basically gets out, and they're all sort of working at this bar, the strip club bar, with this older woman who sort of like took them all under their wing, and they're basically vigilantes, and they're cleaning up the streets of all the filth, the horrible men out there. And then you also have like a police procedural going on alongside that with a pair of cops as well. That's basically the story. Right away, I got to say, I love the look of this film, the soundtrack. It's got all this like punk music of the time, and it has this, honestly, like one of the last, like, if you're counting 97 here, it's like one of the last like gritty New York films, feeling wise, because we always talk about how much like the 70s and 80s had just the grimiest, nastiest, filthiest New York vibes. And
Yeah, I
then
love that shit.
they started cleaning the city up in the 90s and 2000s. And actually, interestingly enough, there's a documentary on this disc, about 40-50 minutes, and part of it is like the making of the film, but you also have sort of the writer and star, who plays Jennifer. She actually co-wrote this movie. She actually goes to a lot of the locations where it was shot and shows how different it is now, compared to what it was back in 93 when they started shooting. There's a lot of there's a lot of like sort of penis murder going on in this film. You got the very first kill is like a when they see the body, it got a mutilated peep. I just wrote down mutilated peep like a few times in here. There's a pool cue male rape.
Oh yeah, the pool cue sodomy. Great scene.
Yeah. You got sort of this ragtag group of chicks. There's like a Spanish one, there's like a black chick, there's the two sisters, there's the Ohio like fish out of water lead character, Jennifer. But they're basically just taking out assholes. Now, sometimes they're taking out like obviously rapists, they you want to take those out, but some people are just kind of assholes and they take them out. Like I think there's even a few girls that are just hanging out with assholes that they take out. Yep. So the lines are a little blurred there on the vigilante justice. There's actually some like decent effects, and there's a headshot kill. There's a weird scene with a punk band where they pull out, like, is it a fake penis? Because
yeah, it's like a rubber dildo.
Okay, it looked really realistic.
Doesn't the dude actually get up on stage and start sucking it off too?
Yeah. And I was like,
before she missed this
scene, jarring.
Before she chops it up and it like bleeds. That's a weird scene, man, because it's like this female punk rock band, and the
which
lead
is a
singer's,
real band, by the way.
Yeah, she's got no top on. She's just giving her just like, rah, and then she pulls out this like fucking rubber pinky out her pants and then chops it up and it's bleeding everywhere. Dude's sucking it. It's a crazy fucking scene, man. It just seems so New York punk rock, like it does.
Oh yeah. And the whole bar scene, like throughout the film, like it's just so like this sleazy bar, you know what I mean? And it works so well. And the film itself is a pretty solid sort of like revenge film. Very low budget. It's a good, I really like the movie. I think it's like the perfect type of movie for the VSA label. And this film actually premiered at Fantasia, I believe, and it didn't really have a release forever. There was rumors that Mondo Macabro picked it up and it just never came out. So I think this is like one of the only like legit releases out there for this film.
I think it is actually. Yeah.
And so I did check out the features. There's a commentary and a documentary. The commentary is a little dry. It's has the director of the film and the lead Jennifer, as well as she co-wrote the film. It was really her script that she got the director to sort of like do most of the police procedural stuff for. It's a little bit of a dry commentary. It's a lot of like, oh, I remember it was really cold that day and stuff like that. You know, there's a little bit of like a little bit of insight. Like they say at one point that there was that they did freaking ecstasy with Gaspar Noé. I just thought that was really weird.
What?
Yeah, they were hanging out with Gaspar Noé at Fantasia or wherever around when this film was coming out, and they did ecstasy with Gaspar Noé. I was like, wow, that's sort of a random thing to hear. There was it seems like they were kind of like didn't know what they were allowed to say. Like they're like, I think we could say that, and they're like, because they said that one of the people like basically was banging a lot of the cast like in the production van. And I was like, you know,
wow.
But they were very impressed with the Vinegar Syndrome transfer, apparently, because they said you couldn't see crap on the original version. Like you could actually see like texture and stuff. Being 16 millimeter, you know, it's not the prettiest transfer ever, but I imagine from what it looked like before, it was probably a lot better.
That's why when you shoot on 16 millimeter and anything kind of lower quality, you have to have good light. You got to have a good light department. Right.
Yeah.
Like definitely. you have to really focus. And it's tough with that movie too, because a lot of the scenes are shot outside and shit like that. So to light that is a little bit tougher and keep that kind of darkness stuff. But yeah, I can see it being really dark on the original print for sure.
And so much of the film was like just guerrilla style filmmaking, you know,
for sure.
And like they even talked about like some of the like subway scenes and you know, like the transient, like at the beginning of the film with the montage of like New York and like the rain and stuff. Like they're like, today it would cost $10,000 just to shoot that, you know what I mean? And the probably the more interesting aspect of like how this film came about was the girl who plays Jennifer actually was attempting to be, you know, an actress and stuff like that, and she had a job like waiting tables or as a waitress, and she got fired or something, so her friend suggested she do like you know, stripping basically, and she was like, no way, but then she did it. And a lot of the ideas for this film came from her time as an exotic dancer, just the way that dudes were assholes basically and treated them like crap. And she said you had like tons of Wall Street guys, like the two dudes in the bar that are like those are sort of like inspired by real people that used to come in and bug her and stuff like that. And in fact, the line where he says that she, you know, why do you have the G-string so high? Did you have like a C-section? She said that actually happened. It was an actual experience. So,
wow.
And it feels authentic. Before I even watched the special features of the commentary, I was like, man, this feels really like authentic to like the type of, you know, insults and disrespect that people at this time would have experienced and still do a little bit, you know. But yeah, I really dug this flick. I've never seen it before, and I've only heard Dave talk about it, but it's definitely a great pickup for the fans of collecting out there. I would, if it's still, is it still in print? It probably is. It was pretty recent. So. It's definitely worth picking up. Tyler, I think you'd think it'd be pretty cool too.
Yeah, I have this movie.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I watched this.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
He did. He said that you weren't as impressed with it, like as most people were.
Oh, Tyler, stop! Get off your high horse.
Yeah, of course.
You didn't like any of the stuff I just said. You didn't
dude. I think
no,
the movie.
I just like all that stuff's true. I just like overall, I just like it's a good movie. I think it's It's a gritty, cool.
It's
like,
a time capsule, bro.
Yeah,
it's a time capsule
agree.
of an era that
That
doesn't
it's good.
exist
It's just
anymore,
like
man.
it's good. I just don't think it's like incredible.
It's like great independent filmmaking, bro.
It is.
I think it's
like
incredible.
It's a good title for the label.
Tony thinks it.
I think it was fantastic too, man.
It blew me away.
I just couldn't. Yeah, like the cop. That's just what I was getting at, man. I was like, man, I can't believe they wrote that in there where they did the cop nasty in that, or the dude cop. Like he just gets fucking done. And I felt kind of bad for him because, like, really, he just went in there. He was a rookie. He was all green and shit. Forgot his radio, but he gets fucking capped up like brutally, man. I'm like, but that's where you, like, you know, it was kind of their vigilanteism was a little bit shaded because, like, they killed a lot of other people that didn't really need to die. That wasn't part of the process. But I do like that collective of misfits. Like
I love it. They all had a story to tell, dude. They all had a story to tell. Like when they're playing basketball and they do like the little backstory montage of each of the characters, like you buy it. It feels right. Like it. I think this movie is like very well put together for having no money. Which, by the way, the people that invested in this film were basically embezzling money, and that's probably why it had such a bad release too, because the filmmakers actually had to like prove that they were actually making a movie. They were in this like court trouble, and they had to like hire a lawyer that they owed like $50,000 to that they never like paid and shit forever. Just like a huge mess because the people that, you know, that she met at like strip clubs that produced this film.
Holy shit.
Turned out to be not the best guys.
Oh, color me shocked.
Yeah, because you can't launder the whole production cost in just in one regular weekend, right? It takes a few years to get all that money going. So that's a cool story, man. I mean, that really adds into
why
the look of it too.
This was the perfect example of why I love this label, because you find out stuff, and why I wanted to start this podcast too, because I neglect my special features a lot. Whereas back in the day, I used to watch every special feature on every disc I bought. Yeah, I neglect them so much now, but it's like I learned so much about this movie in that little documentary, and like it's a very interesting story, and it's cool. So I give the movie probably about an 8 out of 10, and it's pretty awesome release.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. I think I gave it like a 8.5 or something like that. I love the look out of it, but it just, like I said, it tripped me right out because I was like, man, this looks like early 90s. I'm like, 97, what the fuck? But
I know, right? Because that's
it just tripped me right out.
Because 97 feels so like the 2000s, you know what I mean?
It doesn't
like it feels
seem
way closer to the 2000s.
That long ago to me, in theory, because like I graduated in 98 high school. Like I still remember that time very vividly.
It doesn't even seem that long ago to me.
I don't picture 97 looking so damn gritty. You know?
Right.
It's like, it's interesting to me.
Yeah. But doesn't it make you feel better that you know now that it was started filming in 93?
Yeah.
Like, oh, that totally makes sense now.
It makes complete sense. I kept looking at the clothes and I'm like, man, it just doesn't seem like what did they pick up their wardrobes at like a fucking Value Village or something like that? Like it just, I don't know. But now it makes a lot more sense. So pretty cool stuff. I like the fact that she wrote it basically on personal experiences. That really adds
cool.
to it.
And she was awesome. Like, you know, her talking about the movie, like she was much more interesting than the director. Like the director was very like bland.
It seemed like he almost wasn't even involved. It's like she was literally like the centerpiece of the movie.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
And she starred.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool stuff. All right, well, who's up? Who wants to go? All right, I'll go.
Not everyone all at
once. I'll actually be right back.
Okay, yeah, I'll go then.
All right.
Okay, so for my very first review on the SYN bin, which I gotta say, man, great title. Our man Tyler came up with that one. It's a good thing I was actually bugging him off the top of the show saying that he's the most Canadian American I know because he's the hugest hockey fan. You don't talk to a lot of Americans that know hockey like he does, but that's where the name comes from. Like SYN bin, that's slang for the penalty box. So anyways, we know that. So, of course, Vinegar Syndrome came out with a brand new sub-label called another one, which is it's crazy. I think they have like 8 or 9 of them now. It's actually getting to the point I can't even remember all of them. But I do think that this one right here is going to cater to a very specific breed of film. And just given what the first one is, and that of course is Redneck Zombies. So it was the Troma released film, not produced film. So this came out in 1989. In which it didn't really surprise me that they were putting this out. It surprised me that they started a new label to put out Redneck Zombies, because if you guys follow Vinegar Syndrome, they have done a lot of work. They have a deal with Full Moon. They release a lot of their titles, do transfers, or what did I say? Full Moon? Troma.
Yeah.
Sorry, they have a deal with Troma where they do release a lot of their titles and they give back and stuff like that. Like there's a certain deal going on there. That's why Vinegar Syndrome has released so many of the Troma titles over the years. So, but to my amazement,
you know what's kind of weird, Moodz? If you look at the back, like text at the bottom.
Yeah,
it actually says Full Moon Pictures.
Does it? Oh, it does. Weird. 1987 Full Moon Pictures. What the fuck? Why does it say 87 though? Huh. That's interesting.
It was being made.
Well, this movie got released in 1989 through Troma, and it took them about a year to do. I'm not sure. So the production might have started in 87, and then shopped it around for a little bit. But according to the commentary, they didn't shop it around too long. They actually went to Troma right away, and they never got back to them right away. They tried another few labels and stuff like that, and no one bid on it and stuff. And then Lloyd took it serious, and then it turns out that he wanted to pick it up, and it was kind of weird because it was actually the first label that they had issued the film to. So I'm assuming probably that was like 88. So production's probably 87. That's why it's. But I can't explain the Full Moon thing.
I wonder if it's the same Full Moon or if it's a different Full Moon. Like
it says
kind of a generic production.
Well, it does say slash. It says Full Moon Pictures / Color Cast Production. So which I'm not really too sure what that actually is. So I don't know.
Who knows? It is generic.
Yeah,
it has to be, right?
It must be. It must have been. It's probably just the copyright for 87. Maybe that's when they had the production, they copyrighted it, and then that's something to do with that or whatever. But
maybe maybe they were there before like Full Moon was there, because at that time weren't they just Empire Pictures?
Yeah, they
That's
were.
what I was trying to remember. If
Full Moon never changed their name officially, I think until like
89.
89. It's Puppet Master. Puppet Master is the first film on Full Moon Pictures after Empire. So, but yeah. So, anyways, Vinegar Syndrome drop in Redneck Zombies, and this art right here, which is really cool. It's actually quite funny because the girl that plays the lead in this film, she's like, yeah, that's clearly not me on the cover. And they tried to explain it away that like, well, we were in New York at the time, and the Troma guys, they have this thing with having sexy babes in their movies, so that's why you're not on there. It's really funny. It's actually the commentary. But yeah, so Redneck Zombies had to rock the Redneck Zombie shirt, which is actually the cover art for the Troma 20th anniversary DVD, which is cool. You got to keep this shit because this actually comes with the CD soundtrack.
I actually have that as well.
Yeah.
I got that, believe it or not, in a Walmart dump bin.
Wow.
Back in like 2010.
That's so weird that it would even be there.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is a cool release because it does have, it's a 20th anniversary, but it comes with the CD soundtrack, which this version does not. And I was actually shocked by that. I was shocked that the Troma has, they probably could have put it out, but who knows, maybe rights have changed. I have no idea how that works with the soundtrack. Music is always complicated when it comes to copyrights and rights and stuff like that. So, but Redneck Zombies, 1989, basically quick little premise of the film. It's about rednecks that get transformed into zombies. So at the beginning of this film, you got this GI, he's like transferring some like
toxic, basically trioxin.
It's basically toxic sludge. Or whatever, trioxin. Yeah, it's like trioxin, toxic sludge, whatever. Anyways, you got this hilarious scene in the film where, these rednecks, they make their own moonshine and stuff like that, and they end up finding this barrel after this dude loses it off the back of his Jeep like an idiot. He fucking loses it in the woods and shit.
Military fuck up.
Typical military fuck up. Yeah,
distracted by his dog with sunglasses.
I just love the way it falls off the back of the Jeep too, because it's not even tied. It's not strapped down at all. A little bump and it just rolls down the hill. Anyways, the rednecks steal it and shit, and there's this funny scene where this guy like tries to pick it up and shit. He's like, look how strong I am, and he fucking bails over, and it goes crashing down, and all this trioxin or whatever you want to call it, toxic sludge, comes flying out into their still, and they're just like, well, we're rednecks, we're gonna drink that shit. So they basically do their batch up and they distribute it. And that's what they do. The rednecks, they distribute their moonshine to all these people throughout the counties and stuff like that. And of course it's contaminated. And once people start drinking it, they turn into zombies.
Redneck zombies.
Redneck zombies.
It's such a fun movie.
So
dude.
Redneck Zombies is legitimately one of the funnest. Now, according to the director, it's not completely shot. It is video. It's shot on 3/4 inch tape. So it's actually a step up from your typical like VHS, like actual. That's why Redneck Zombies actually looks a little bit better than your actual shot on video type film.
I didn't know that.
I always wondered why it looked a little bit better. Like it sounds better. Like, you know, their sound and stuff that they did. They actually recorded some like live stuff and shit like that. But I always wondered why it looked a little bit better, because it actually is a little bit step up. It's like going from like, you know, beta to VHS, or from VHS to beta kind of thing. Right. But the cameras are different, like the 3/4 inch tape and stuff like that. So, but yeah, Redneck Zombies, man, if you mixed up Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Dawn of the Dead, and
Return of the Living Dead.
Or yeah, Return of the Living Dead. Even though Dawn of the Dead is actually one of their biggest influences, they were just big fans. And of course, the Toxic Avenger, which the contrast in this film to Toxic Avenger is the exact same thing. The guy gets fucking, you know, mutated from like toxic sludge and shit like that. It's basically the same thing that happens in this through a barrel and shit. So it's pretty much the exact same thing. So if you take those 3 movies, you got Redneck Zombies, exactly what it is. They clearly had a straight influence from Toxic Avenger, and it's just kind of, it's not even ironic because they really did want to be with Trauma, but the Toxic Avenger was like their biggest influence to making this film. And you can totally see it. You can totally see it. But I love the beginning of the film where it has the scroll, has the voiceover and stuff, and it's talking.
It's awesome.
It's basically Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but comedy version of it and stuff. Like this shit's gonna like end the world and stuff. It's pretty funny.
It's super satirical.
It is super satirical, and but like the whole movie is actually super clever. I think a lot of people can't take this film as seriously as they probably should, because
they write it off
because of the whole shot on video mystique to it. And if you're not into shot on video stuff, you're probably going in with a bad taste in your mouth, or you're just not going to check it out in general. But the thing is, this is one of those typical shot on video films that has nothing but heart put into it. There's nothing but heart. The writing is actually super clever in this film. It's so clever to the point where actually in the commentary, the director had to talk about this one review that he read. He was talking about how most reviewers basically either love this movie or they fucking hate it. There's no one in between. His like 10 out of 10s or 5 out of 5s and like 1 out of 10. He said there's this one review that he had to talk about where this guy literally watched the movie, gave it like a 1 out of 10, and he wrote a book, like 10 paragraphs of how this movie was shit. He broke down every little imperfection and shit. But the funniest thing about the review was he actually went on to say, he's like, man, this movie's so fucking piss poor and shitty that they don't even have any continuity in it. From scene to scene, the guy's shirt's changing and stuff. Like, they don't even know what they're doing as filmmakers. Clearly did not understand the joke with the shirt changing in every scene. If you watch this movie with an open mind, you notice that every shirt is literally telling you what's going to happen or what's happening in the scene in a clever way.
So smart.
So this guy totally fucking missed the point of the joke. It's a running joke throughout the whole film. It's actually quite brilliant. One of my favorite scenes in this film is actually the scene where, so basically you got a bunch of characters, they're like out in the woods, they're going to do some camping and shit like that. And you got the other half of the story with the rednecks and stuff. And they're about to drink their shine and turn into zombies and stuff. And on the contrast, on the flip side, you have these guys are out in the woods and they're about to get all high and they're smoking their weed and shit like that. And it shows them like all tripping out, and it keeps cutting back to them transforming and tripping out and shit. And that whole contrast of like these two groups tripping out and doing, it's such a unique thing to see in a shot on video film, because they use like all these kind of weird effects and stuff like that. I always thought that was super cool, man. Super, super cool. It's very trippy, like literally trippy to watch. But I think that's a really unique way of showcasing that and stuff. But
my favorite scene is the Texas Chainsaw Hitchhiker Franklin parody thing. It's like, I was the shaver.
So there's a scene in that scene played Billy Bob, who is actually the director of the film. He plays one of the rednecks, and he's driving down the road on his way to go deliver some of the tainted moonshine, and he picks up this hitchhiker, and it turns into the classic scene, the hitchhiker scene from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, basically the exact same thing.
Yeah,
now,
like a lot of the same lines.
yeah, so the cool thing about that scene that I never knew until I watched the special features, thank you, JP, for incorporating this into the show, because it got me to not only watch the documentary, which is like an 80-90 minute full-length documentary, and I watched the new commentary. There's 3 commentaries. There's the retro one that's actually on this. Then there's a brand new one that has a director, the producer, who plays one of the rednecks too, and the lead actress who survives the film. And there's also one done by a bunch of podcast guys. I listened to that for 10 minutes and almost puked because they were so pretentious. It was like, holy shit, Tyler should be on this fucking show. On this podcast.
Oh my god!
I was like, I could not get over it.
Well, actually, fired. People catching strays out here. Dude.
I'm not trying to disrespect or anything, but I knew it was going to be kind of pretentious when the one guy said that he had a podcast called it was a Criterion podcast called Spine Numbers or something like that.
That's a red flag. That's
a red definitely flag. Tyler's.
I was like, oh Lord.
I'm saying like Criterion, like when I say like my favorite labels, like Criterion and Vinegar Syndrome, are like right here now. Like, because I'm just encapsulating all things Vinegar Syndrome, but man, like the people that are Criterion only live and die by it, red flag.
Yeah, I think it's called Spine Numbers. Anyways, he was something to do with Criterion. Anyways. So, but they clearly had never seen the movie before, because they're like, okay, well, apparently this is like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre ripoff. As the thing was scrolling, I was like, these guys have never seen this movie before. This is fucking blowing my mind. And I was like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. So anyways, that scene, going back to the hitchhiker scene, is actually really kind of unique, because this is why I love special features, because you would have only found this out through the director's commentary. And actually it's in the documentary too. They talk about it, but so the guy that they hired to do this was one of their buddies, and he did a lot of acting in high school and stuff like that, did some plays and shit like that, but they always thought he was really good. The funny thing is, the guy was not well versed in horror films. In fact, didn't even like horror films. So he'd never actually seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre before he did the scene. So as they were doing his makeup up, which took a couple hours, they showed him the scene from Texas Chainsaw Massacre while they were doing the makeup, and they did that in one take.
Holy shit. So that guy got, because he has the
that's one take
down of the hitchhiker. Like yeah, he's embodying the hitchhiker. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So they just kind of, well, like, this is what we want to do a parody of. And he's like, okay. And they showed it to him once, and he's like, okay, I got it. They shot the scene basically in one take, and that was it. I'm like, what the fuck? But
I've never seen this movie. You're talking like the van scene, right?
Yeah. So the crazy thing about that is too, like, they tried to track this guy down. Like, he won't talk to them. He like disappeared. He wants nothing to do with the movie. He's never talked to him ever since like the production, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, fuck. And it's actually quite funny, because they go through like a lot of the people that were involved with the films. There was a couple people that were like excommunicated from their churches and stuff because of that area in Maryland and stuff. Like, just being involved with, like, there's the one scene where the two hillbillies are fucking watching the girl on TV rubbing her boobies and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
One of the guys in that scene, one of the guys in that scene got excommunicated from his church for that scene and shit. He had to go and apologize. And there was another person. It was crazy. I was like, holy fuck. Jeez. But Redneck Zombies is one of those films that is actually very well written for like first time guys and stuff like that. One of the coolest things about the actual main portion of the cast, like the fat guy and stuff, and they did a show together, like it was like a local television show called oh shit, what the fuck was it called? Oh, I can't remember now. Yeah, I don't come
Blu-ray.
Yeah, I actually think it is actually. There is a scene from Crabtown, USA. So they did a local TV show called Crabtown, USA. They did about like 6 to 8 episodes and stuff like that. And pretty much everybody from the main cast of Redneck Zombies is from that show, like the fat guy. And there's actually a clip. There's a whole scene on the special features showing him do it. And it's hilarious. So anyways,
like a cable access show.
Yeah, the cable access show. So that production crew, so they all had this chemistry together because they did all these kind of short skits and everything. But they said that guy in particular basically ad-libbed and just he used the script as like a guide, but everything he said in the film and all his jokes and all his everything was just him. They said he was the funniest guy they'd ever met in his life. Like he was always the live of the party. Like he was always the funniest guy around and shit. And you can just tell in the film because like all of his mannerisms and the way he delivers his lines, he's got the best comedic timing. I love the scene where he kind of looks at the body, he looks at the shit and he's like, well, I hope I don't go blind. And he drinks the fucking shine. Like it's just, he's so funny. Some of his lines in the film are just so good. And they weren't scripted.
I love the part where he's like looking at the actual barrel and it just has like whatever hazardous waste and he's just like, do not open till Christmas.
Totally ad-libbed. He just came up with the shit, man. Like, but yeah, like Redneck Zombies, man, for what they did for effects and stuff, like it's your typical low budget. Basically, most of the effects are like an Evil Dead food. It's all food. You know, the oatmeal and various adhesives and shit like that. So they did what they could.
Totally fits Trauma too.
Yeah. So one of the funny,
too.
Yeah, totally, man, totally. I think a lot of the effects and surprisingly for the film, there is a lot of effects in the movie, right? Like there's the scene where Billy Bob's getting like torn apart at the end, where he's kind of, you know, obviously the effect is him in a table and stuff. And I always wondered, I was like, man, those guts look really, really real. They took the whole Day of the Dead thing, Tom Savini, and they went to slaughterhouses and got real guts. So again, filming those scenes was very much like when you watch special features of Day of the Dead, where
stinky.
It's stinky and it's gross, it's nauseating. So they went through the exact same thing, because what they didn't realize that the scene was going to take like 7-8 hours, so it's just rank in there. But luckily they were shooting
by the hour.
Luckily they were shooting in an abandoned barn, which they asked permission to use and stuff, and they said do whatever you want in there. So it didn't matter. So they fucked the whole place up, and so that was really bonus for them and shit like that. But yeah, that scene took a lot of, just no pun intended, but it took a lot of guts, because it spent a lot of time. They talk about like how they didn't expect it to go on that long, and they were just nauseated to the point where it was like, But speaking of the effects, there's a character in the film called the Tobacco Man, which is kind of a play on the Ice Cream Man. So I always wondered what the fucking deal was with the Tobacco Man, because I've seen this movie hundreds of times. I always wanted to know. I guess I probably could have watched the features if they explained it before, but what the deal was with the Tobacco Man. So basically the Tobacco Man was a real person in Maryland at the time. So in these like hillbilly areas and stuff, like instead of having the Ice Cream Man, they literally had a Tobacco Man. So the Tobacco Man would come around and they would give him fucking tobacco and shit like that. So they based this character off him, but their idea behind the whole thing was to have the Tobacco Man all deformed and like where his jaw had all rotted from cancer and shit, because he chewed tobacco and shit. But they couldn't get the effect right. But they thought that the eye, the stuff they did around the eye looked pretty good. So they're like, well, I guess what we could do is we could just put a bag on his head and we could just, you know, kind of utilize that stuff. And then it turned into kind of a parody of the town that's dreaded Sundown. Right. So, and I was wondering, because I'm like, man, it kind of reminds me of that shit. And sure as shit, they actually go out and say that that's kind of what it turned into. But just knowing that Tobacco Man was based off of like a real type person that was actually happening in Maryland, because that's where they filmed the shit. Another little tidbit that's really interesting: the truck that he's sitting in that open field didn't run. They towed that truck out into the field in 1988 or whatever, and in the commentary they say it's still sitting there to this day.
That's great.
Damn, they need to like post the coordinates of that. I would love to just go to the Redneck Zombies Tobacco Man truck.
I think it's the same field that the barn that they shot in and did the whole end scene, like that whole carnage and everything. It's still in there too, and they left the walls painted with all that fake blood and everything. It just sits there like that. So that's pretty fucking cool. But you know, it's Redneck Zombies, man. I mean, a lot of people might be offended by some of the jokes. There's a lot of dick jokes. There's a lot of black racial jokes and stuff. And of course, one of their best friends in the film, he's a black character. He's actually a real friend in real life and stuff like that. And they make all the, you know, the jokes about black guys having huge penises and, you know, like 3 inches from the ground. And like they were joking about in the commentary, and they're just like, man, thinking back on that wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
It's so funny. But I like those type of jokes. Like they're cheap and stuff, but they're fun. But
I love Ace humor like that. So much.
It's so funny. They do it so many. Like he's pissing in a lake and he's just like pissing way out. It's so ridiculous. And he keep going on about these dick jokes. It's so funny. But actually a little tidbit in the film. So the dude's girlfriend, the black girl, the reason why she gets killed off so quick in the film is because she was actually pregnant, and they knew that this production was going to take like a whole year to shoot. So they needed to kill her off before she got too fat, right? Because she was pregnant. And so they killed her off first in the film. So I thought it was pretty cool. So this movie they specifically said in the commentary, it took 22 weekends. They only shot on weekends, spaced out over a whole year. So that is why in certain scenes, there's leaves on the tree. And then in the same scene, there's no leaves on the tree, right? So, you know, the production of shot on video films, it takes, but yeah, 22 weekends, 21 weekends, or whatever on the weekends and shit. And And because they spend the time raising the money to go and get props, and they said that the movie cost 10 grand to make, and they spent most of that money on 3/4 inch tape, because like a lot of the effects and stuff, it was food, it was cheap stuff, adhesive, it was all really cheap. They didn't pay really any of the actors. All the extras that came out for the end zombie attack apocalypse scene, they basically just posted back in the day when you'd post a
bulletin board or something.
A bulletin board, like a babysitter wanted, with the little strips of phone numbers.
Yeah.
They said the next day they had everything full. Everybody just wanted to come out and do it, and they did a bunch of makeup for these people all cheaply and shit. And it's just a really interesting production. And it's like the way they talk about the production is they had so much fun. They really didn't have any problems. It's actually kind of funny. The lead guy, I can't remember what the character's name is right now, the guy that's kind of the leader of the crew that's out camping and stuff, he actually was a second actor. They had hired another guy, and he didn't show up for the second day, so they had to like recast. So that guy, he filled in and shot the rest of the movie and shit like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. But
that guy did great too. I love that character.
No, he's really, really good. And it's so cool that they did this public access TV show before, because of the chemistry that these people had, and you can really see it too. The executive producer who plays one of the rednecks in the film, his name is escaping me right now. What's his name again? Ed Bishop. So he actually works for the UFC now. He's worked in the industry ever since this. Like, he's had various jobs in production and doing a whole pile of other stuff. He's been working for the UFC for like the last 15, 20 years, something like that. He's done various jobs and shit like that through the UFC in production. It's funny because he talks about how he turned down this one job in the UFC, and he was doing something else, but he turned down the Ultimate Fighter job because he's like, I don't want to work on that. It's going to last one season. He's like, now 32 seasons later, fuck me. It's pretty funny, but yeah, lots of really good stuff on here. So like I said, the features, they do have the 20th anniversary edition on here. There's a unfinished documentary that it's about 14 minutes of footage that they'd shot way back in the day. Sweet Redneck Memories, 83-minute full-length documentary. There's 3 commentaries. There's a brand new one with the director, the producer Ed Bishop, and the lead actress Lisa M. DeHaven. And then there's the archival one, and then there's one that's done by critical commentary from James Branscombe and Nick Vance of the Cinematic Void podcast. Okay. And then there's a bunch of interviews. There's a cable access TV show from Crabtown, USA clip and stuff. Lots of really good features and shit. But I would say the commentary, a lot of the stuff in the new commentary, they talk about in the documentary. Yeah. So there's a few other little tidbits and stuff like that that are pretty interesting. But overall, man, if you watch a documentary, you're going to get pretty much a gist of everything. So, but I absolutely love this movie. I think it's pretty cool hearing the director talk about like his influence and stuff. And he said when he saw Taxi Driver was the film that that's what made him realize he wanted to be a director, make movies and stuff like that. And I'm like, really?
That's interesting, because in A Gun for Jennifer, they also were influenced by Taxi Driver,
which makes sense in Gun for Jennifer being whole New York aesthetic too. Like, I mean, shit. I mean, Taxi Driver can't get any more gritty New York too. It's like, it really is. So, do I have anything else in here? Yeah, like I said, it's just, I mean, the only place that they really wanted to be was Troma. They said they tried multiple different companies try to distribute the film. They said Troma was the first company they went to. They never heard back. They actually, a funny story about this. They sent their tape out to a bunch of other places, and actually one of the companies returned. They sent them a bag of shit. An actual literal bag of shit.
What the hell?
So obviously they didn't want the movie. I was like, wow, that's impressive that they hated the movie so much that they literally
us a piece of shit. We're gonna send you a piece of shit.
They sent them some fucking donkey shit. It's crazy.
Dude.
That's so petty.
And then
I'm sure they kept the movie too.
Yeah,
probably fucking bootleg the shit out of it too.
Just like imagine
after Troma made it famous. Yeah,
it's so funny too, because they probably thought like no one would ever fucking put this out, and then like they would see it. They had to see it like in video stores.
Right.
Yeah, no, very very popular video title for sure.
Oh yeah, I never touched on the actual soundtrack. So the dude that did it, his last name is Bond. I can't remember what his first name is, but he
James.
composed all the music for the film, did the score, and did the soundtrack. It's all original music and shit. And I thought it was quite interesting that he composed the score and did the soundtrack without ever seeing a clip of the movie. He did all that shit
That's
just
weird.
basically with a word of, "Hey, we're doing this movie, Redneck Zombies. It's about redneck zombies killing people. You want to do some music?" Like that's fucking
Wow.
So he did all this music and then they incorporated after it was done and shit. I was like, that is so bizarre because most people that compose music for films, they're literally watching the movie going and doing their shit.
Right.
Like they're vibing to it, right? And you go writing soundtrack songs and shit like that. You know, you take sometimes visuals and what, you know, some of the narrative and you put it into your lyrics and shit like, but not the case here. I thought that was really weird. But it turned out pretty cool. It's actually it's creepy because it makes sense, the country music to Redneck Zombies.
Yeah.
It just really does. So
great theme song too.
yeah, it really is. It's catchy as hell, and it just fits. It really does just fit. So I think that's everything that I have on the movie. Oh, besides the drinking man, one of the funniest non-speaking characters in a film ever. Like this dude they hired on just to be this kind of side background character who's just like drinking all the time. I love this. He's always pounding back. I love when he's fighting the zombies. He's like taking slugs of his Mickey and shit. He's all fighting and shit. But he became like super famous. Like he actually got recognized from people and shit. It's pretty cool. But yeah, Redneck Zombies, man. For me, it's like a 9.5 out of 10. It's one of my all-time favorites. I'm gonna call it shot on video. They don't really like to call it. It's shot on 3/4 inch tape. It's a little
shot
bit better.
On tape video.
It's shot on video, but it's funny because if you see the cameras, they're not like your, you know, like your fucking 80s VHS camera. It's like a way bigger thing. And they were quite ballsy because here's another little tidbit about the film. The opening scene in the film shot kind of like the guys, you know, he's all fucked up and stuff. He's supposed to be shot like an institution. That's actually shot in UMBC, like one of the, actually it's funny because my university in town here is called UMBC. Like in their college or whatever. And what they did is somebody opened up the front door. They just bolted in there and started shooting, guerrilla shooting.
Nice.
They shot all that shit without permission and not. Actually, they shot the whole movie without permits and stuff. But a lot of it was shot in open fields and shit where, you know, it was someone's land, but who the fuck is going out there and stuff. But typical low budget filmmaking, and it worked out really good. So, but good cast.
Awesome.
Like I think a lot of people don't put it into perspective like how good these people really were in the film because it is satirical, it is a little bit goofy and stuff, but these guys put on really, really great performances. Especially I always call him the fat zombie because I always forget his name. I think his name is Dick or Decker or something like that, but he's really, really good. And you could just tell he's just a natural funny guy. Great movie.
Oh yeah, he's probably my favorite part about the entire movie. Like anytime he was on screen, I'm just like glued to it.
I like when he says about the one girl, he's like, "Do you own this?" There's so many bad jokes like that in the film, man. Like, it's good stuff. But yeah, Redneck Zombies, highly recommended. Transfer looks great. I mean, as much as you can really clean up a video type film, it definitely looks better than the VHS I had back in the day. I'm assuming it looks better than this DVD.
It does.
I mean, with a video with a maxed out bit rate, I'm sure it's just going to look better regardless.
Right. Yeah, Redneck Zombies. Gotta love it.
Which one of you two fools wants to go next?
I'll go.
All right.
I feel like I went on for like a half an hour there. I did it again.
I know.
How am I going to follow that?
I know. I figured I'd be the one to follow up.
I was having fun with that though, man. It was just so many good tidbits on it. I'm glad I watched the features, man.
Yeah,
I love learning about shit. I love little tidbits, like little bits, man.
Yep, that's one of the main reasons that I wanted.
You guys are definitely making me want to check out my special features because like that's something I definitely neglect now too. And like on those early Screen Factories, I used to watch like literally all of them. Like I know so much random shit about like Witchboard, Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah.
All right, Tony.
All right, so the movie I picked is The Black Room, which was filmed in 1981 and then released in 1982, I believe. It's a vampire movie, not a slasher movie, according to Vinegar Syndrome, which is ridiculous.
They call it a slasher film?
Yeah, it's like when they like put up the little prompts for like the Black Friday sale, they're like never on disc, like 80s slasher movie, and then it's the Black Room. I'm like, okay, like watching it,
dude. They call a lot of shit slashers. I've noticed.
Oh yeah, they stretch that term out hardcore.
Definitely.
Because when you tell a collector like a hidden slasher gem from the 80s, it just piques interest.
Yep.
Right? Like that's a selling point, but then they're like, I got him.
Right. Yeah. And then me, like I have such like a fucking like fever for slasher movies. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So me, of course, when I see one that's not, I'm just like so let down. But this movie's actually really good. So it stars this guy. His name is Larry. He's like your normal like family man. Except the problem with him is that he's got a really bad sex life, which to me doesn't make any sense because his wife is like super, super hot. So one day he's like in the car and he's looking at the classified in the newspaper and he looks and he finds this ad that's like, for $200, you could rent this crazy sex room in this like crazy chalet in the Hollywood Hills. So of course this guy's just like, fuck it, my life sucks, so I'm gonna go do that. So the people that own this mansion, they're called Jason and Bridget. You really don't know much about them at first, but they do seem like a little suspect. They're brother and sister, and that's all you know right now. So of course, Larry, he rents the room and then he goes out and starts picking up like all these college girls and like these hookers and shit off the street. And he's bringing them to this room and he's fucking them and like fulfilling his wildest like fantasies. But little does he know that after he leaves, Jason and Bridget go in, kidnap the girls, take them back, and then they deliver like, or they perform like blood transfusions. So Jason and Bridget are actually vampires. Mm-hmm. And the way they like ingest blood is through blood transfusions. And they like farm these people until they pretty much die, and then they bury them in the ground. So that's crazy. And then eventually Larry's wife finds out what's going on. She finds like the crumpled up ad in the back of his car. And so of course she's like, what the fuck? Oh yeah, because before that, like while they're having sex, like Larry's like actually mouthing up every single thing he's doing to these girls in this black room. But she thinks it's just like a fantasy, like he's just talking like hot to her and shit. And she didn't realize like he's actually doing this kind of kinky shit. So she finds this ad and she's like starting to put the pieces together. She goes to the black room. Meanwhile, Larry has two people there and they're having a threesome. One of them is played by Shooter McGavin, Christopher McDonald, in one of his first movies.
Yep. Dude. I remember now.
Oh, I forgot to mention too, like in this sex room, there's a two-way mirror that Bridget and Jason are like watching, and he's like an avid photographer and he just like loves photography, taking pictures of people having sex, because to him it's like I get to capture like a piece of their soul. And then his sister Bridget, she's like super super like arty, like I don't know, just like a visual arts person. So they do like a lot of weird like modeling shoot. I mean, it's kind of like incestuous too.
I was gonna ask you that. I was like getting incestuous vibes.
Like there's like it has like incestuous tones to it, but it doesn't really like lean too far into it, unfortunately. Oh. So Larry's wife shows up while he's having a threesome with Shooter McGavin and his girlfriend, and she's like watching through the mirror and she's all upset. But then Jason's just like, wait a minute, why don't you take advantage of this and you get into the black room and start fucking people? So Larry's wife starts bringing people to the black room herself to fuck at the same time. So them two are bringing people into the same room at the same time and just basically handing these people to these vampires to just draw their blood after they leave.
This is a weird sounding movie. I didn't watch this one yet.
But then it just like devolves into some crazy shit. But the movie
sounds like a pervert movie. I like it.
It's for sure a pervert movie, and it deals just with a lot of like adultery themes and all this other shit.
Yeah.
And it's cool. Like the movie kind of has like some Eyes Wide Shut vibes to it, because it's dealing with like a lot of cuckold shit, like watching your significant other have sex and trying to like come to terms with that. And then it's shot like really like kind of like voyeuristically. There's a lot of like steady cam shots. Honestly, it's like gratuitous steady cam shots, which is really sweet because it just feels really modern for the time. But it also has like 1 foot like firmly placed in the 70s. Like it's shot like really warm, a lot of nice like shots. But then there's also like 80s in it too. Like there's some like neon lights and some glowy shit at the same time. It's really cool. But where am I at here? The music's really cool. Jason the vampire is like really into classical music, so there's like a lot of like your generic like classical music like songs that you see in like any fucking like gothic vampire movie and shit, like Moonlight Sonata and crap like that.
Or serial killer movies. They always seem to listen to like fucking opera and weird ass shit. I always associate that type of music with serial killers.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I just had like vibes of like The Dentist just like pop in my head because that dude's like so like obsessed with opera and shit. Yeah. Well, anyways, that's stupid. But there's also like other cool music in it too. It's like super like beat based, like a lot of low like drums and like super like drony like pounding, because it's almost like the music's like a heartbeat.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that was the point of the score in that film, was to kind of mimic the inside of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense. Yeah, I remember that.
And that was really cool to me too. But and then there's like some other funny music too. Like there's one scene where Larry's fucking Bridget, the one vampire, and she's all saying like, you can be the bull and I'll be the matador. And then they start playing some like flamenco guitar music and shit while she's like riding his ass. Like I haven't like really gotten deep into like the sex scenes. Like they're not super like gratuitous or anything. So I mean it's shot pretty classy. But the characters themselves, like they're not too interesting. Like Larry, he's just like your normal ass dude. Like the most interesting thing about him is that sometimes he'll do like some stupid fucking magic tricks in the movie. Like he'll look at his kids. It's like dad magic. Like he looks at his kids and he'll like act like he swallows like an orange and he's like, ooh, look at this. And the kid's like, wow.
I feel like that's the reason why it found itself on the Video Nasty section 2 list right there, is because of the corny fucking magic right there. It wasn't the sex and the vampirism. It was
this is section 2 Video Nasty.
Yeah, I for some reason I don't understand why this movie made the section 2 list at all. Because I remember watching this when we did the 82 show and I was like, why in the fuck, like what made this movie trigger something for them to like, ban it at the time?
There's like no blood in it at all. I mean there's no gore. There's some blood. Like it's mostly just blood transfusions. Like maybe back in the 80s like that was some taboo shit, but nowadays it's like big fucking deal.
I'm thinking it must be just the straight sex or something, because I always felt like a lot of the video nasties, especially like the ones that got prosecuted, oh, I mean, actually, this is on the section 3 list, not the section 2 list, but still one of the videos that was potentially up for prosecution and, pull out of video stores and stuff like that, but it still made the section 3 list. I feel like a lot of the titles that were on the prosecuted list too are just, if they had that, because a lot of the films back in those days had that great opening scene, gore, blah, blah, blah. They watch 5 minutes. That's getting banned right there.
Yep.
But this one, I remember watching it going like, I guess then maybe they watched a little bit more and only made the section 3, but still it's on that list. And it was super, super obscure and hard to find. When this one got announced from Vinegar Syndrome, I almost shit, because I was like, finally, because I've been trying to complete, like I have all the 72 video nasties. I'm working on the section 3 because there's still a couple that haven't been released. And this was one of them. So pretty cool, but it's a head scratcher. It makes no sense because there's a lot worse shit out there than this.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I didn't get to see it on VHS. Like I remember looking at the videotape like as a kid, like in the video store, and I would like look at this cover and I would just be like, this is the dumbest looking thing I'm ever gonna watch.
I never rented that or saw that as VHS in the VHS days. I saw it first time, I think YouTube back in, there was this channel, I don't know, I can't remember what it was called. It was like 2010, 11 or something like that. There was a dude that, it must have been the same channels, because he would upload all these obscure 80s films. It was just like 80s obscure slashers. Now a lot of them have releases, but I remember this one was on his channel. I watched it, Shit Transfer. And every 6 months that channel would disappear and then another one would appear with like the same movie. So it must have been just him re-uploading all the shit, and went on for years and years and years. But now I think what was happening throughout the years, and especially in this golden age of collecting too, all these movies have been actually getting official releases. So it's like less and less to upload. Like, what's the point? Like, no one's going to watch it on there when you get a good release. So
back in like 2010 and when we started the 22 shot show, there were so many films that just weren't released. Like, I mean, hundreds and hundreds, and you would find like entire channels dedicated to like archiving VHS era movies.
It's so crazy to think like all the videos that me and you did on YouTube talking about titles that we wanted released, and like my black book with all the fucking titles that I list. I would say the majority of that shit has been released now. Like, especially in like the last 5-6 years, the last 5-6 years has been this uproar. I mean, we're beyond the golden age of collecting. Like, there's been so many titles in the last 5-6 years that have been released I never thought would see the light of day, and more. Like, there's titles still coming I've never even heard of, and I'm like, this is just unbelievable what's happening. So, like, I mean, even with our featured review tonight, I expected this would get a release someday. I still, to this day, don't understand what took it so long to go from VHS to Blu-ray. I don't get it. Must have music.
I think it was just like finding the film elements,
maybe decent.
Yeah, a lot of times it's finding the elements and or finding out who owns the shit.
Yeah, I think some of these production companies were so kind of low key and stuff, and they go under, and then someone buys them up, and then who actually owns it, right?
It's somebody dies, and then it's
changes
willed to somebody else, and
right.
Half the time those people was like, grandpa used to make movies, and like apparently they don't have no clue about like any of it because they just weren't interested.
Right.
But like me, I'm glad I waited to watch this movie, because in HD it looks really nice. Like it's just shot so cool, like shot so classic yet shot so modern at the same time. It's like it doesn't know like what shoe it wants to put on. It's really weird. But yeah, big fan of this movie. In terms of special features, there isn't a commentary. It's honestly kind of a bare bones disc. Like, you have like a few interviews, one with a director. His name is Ellie Kenner, who I don't think really did anything else. He actually shares a dual directing credit with Norman Thaddeus Vane, who is a co-writer and also directed that early 80s slasher Frightmare that had like Jeffrey Combs in it. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
I know of it. I've never seen
Vinegar Syndrome also put that one out. That's a fun movie.
Yeah.
But in this interview, he was talking about how for some reason he directed the entire movie, this Ellie Kenner guy, but the producer basically forced him to add like Norman Thaddeus Vane as a co-director credit, or else he would have like scrapped the entire movie, because he wrote it and he was like basically blackmailing them to have a director credit.
That's fucked up.
So if you watch the movie,
what,
like, they compromise this way, because when it shows like Norman Thaddeus's Vane or his name on the screen, it just says written and co-directed by, but then it saves directed by Ellie Kenner at the very end. So it seemed like there was just like some petty shit going on there.
Yeah,
definitely.
But to be honest, like, most of these interviews really weren't even that interesting.
Yeah, sometimes you get those ones where they're just really dry and boring.
Right, because then there was another interview with the guy who played Larry, the husband, and he's like, yeah, it was a good time. And he like pulled up his script. He's like, here's the script. The ending was different. Script's 41 years old. I'm 41 years older. I was like, okay, whatever. Next.
That gives me something to talk about.
Right. And then they interviewed the special effects artist, Mark Sustrom, who's been like, he's like a super famous guy who did a lot of cool shit in the 80s. But like the first thing that he says is like, I haven't seen this movie. I probably just watched it for the first time ever. And then he was talking about like pointing out the like these effects. And he's like, I don't even remember doing that. It's like, what kind of interview is this shit? It almost seems like everybody who worked on this movie is like almost completely forgotten about it.
Yeah.
But the movie itself was forgotten about too.
Mm-hmm.
Did it so it was 82 released. did it have a theatrical release? Because this is kind of before they were making movies for direct-to-video market.
I don't know. They didn't.
In
Really,
1982, you weren't producing a movie to put straight on video. It just wasn't an idea.
No,
you were trying to make a movie to go theatrical.
It probably just
probably ran on like the Grindhouse theaters on like
right.
42nd Street or something.
Yeah, because that didn't come for a couple years later, the straight to video market. Because it just like this movie's just it was so obscure, like it just did nothing. It's crazy,
right? I like for me, I feel like it was just like way ahead of its time. Like it's like basically kind of like an art house horror movie. Like it's like came after Martin, and it's like in between like The Hunger. So it's like people really weren't hip to that yet. So it's almost just like it just came out at the wrong time. If it came out like a year or two after like 1982, after like The Hunger already came out, it probably would have done a lot better in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So what would you rate that bitch?
I'd probably give The Black Room an 8. It was great.
Nice.
I think its claim to fame though is probably because it made, the Section 3 of the Video Nasties. I mean, to be honest, I mean, that's probably where most people heard about it the first time. If you were hip to those documentaries and shit, because I mean, if you were like me, I used to watch this shit every single day before I went to the. I loved listening to Stephen Thrower talk and all those guys, and like it's so great.
Yeah, the Severin Video Nasty documentaries are some of the funnest releases ever.
They're like two of them, and they're both like 8 to 10 hours a piece. Like I'll watch them with the commentary, like the full, not just the trailer. You can watch them just with the trailers, or you can watch with the full audio comment. It's so awesome, dude. Those are great releases. Coolest things ever.
Yeah, Nathan Thrower, he's actually a big fan of this movie. He had a pretty big like section written out for it in his Nightmare USA book.
And I have that book sitting. I have that book sitting right in front of me right now.
I need to just like pile through that book. Like for me, I just like pick it up every now and then if I think that he might have like written about something.
It's so extensive, man. That guy is like, he's incredible, man. Like that guy, if you hated James Franco, Jesus Christ, man. Jesus, he would convince you that he was the best director ever.
Yeah, and I would probably believe him too.
Yeah.
If anything that like this disc could have used, a Stephen Thrower like commentary would have been like the cherry on top.
Yeah, sometimes when you don't have like good interviews and stuff, you need to just get like a film historian or like somebody who writes about movies or something to sort of talk about it. Those are probably my favorite commentaries, is the ones of like actual people who know the history and like is a fan of it, or like Troy Hallworth and those guys. Like I love their commentaries.
Yeah, and it's so informative too. And something like this, like a movie that's so weird, like to me, like it deserves to be explored.
Yeah.
But yeah, did any of you, the rest of you guys, watch this one?
I actually did not watch that.
I'm more interested in like picking this up now next month, because they did it. Like I read like a synopsis. It's too interesting to me. I just didn't get it in.
I think you would really like it, Tyler.
Yeah, it definitely interested me, and like just like kind of like the content of it, like kind of makes like kind of prick me up, like ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, I like Nick Quigley has a cameo in it too.
Oh, really?
As a babysitter.
I need to do a rewatch on it since I got the Blu-ray, because I've only ever seen it on when we did the 82 show. It was still not released, so it was it was a YouTube watch on that.
I have the same hesitation as Tony does with like I want to watch stuff like the best possible quality.
Yeah.
So like there's like sometimes like there's movies I put off for like years, like waiting for them to get a good release.
Oh, 100%. But like when we're doing for 22 shots, when we're prepping for shows, I mean, if there's films you got to see, like it's just what
dude, I remember the brutal year of 1976.
That must have been so hard.
There was like nothing out. Like there was so little releases. And I remember just watching these shit dog transfers.
No, you just didn't have any of them. I own like fucking tons of 76 films, man.
Right.
It wasn't too
back then.
70 must have been bad.
Back then, bro, there was not as many as there is now.
Yeah, I guess 76 is pretty old, right?
That was our second
just think
top 10.
Because I remember like you kept getting 70s and like 60s, and you guys were not like happy with that. And it's been a while now since you've done a 70s.
Well, just think about this, man. When our very first top 10 show was 1968. And now, like 1968 prep, this is like way before the internet became fucking so good. Like nothing was on there. I couldn't even find Targets. Now Targets has a fucking Criterion release.
Yeah.
Like that's the shit that we're living in right now. I never saw it for the 68 show, and I own the Criterion of Targets now. It's like what is going? It's crazy to think, man.
68 was actually a hard year, like back then, to find titles. They were pretty much all YouTube or online.
I think
besides like Rosemary's
Baby. Did Kira Nico have a release yet?
No.
I don't think that the Criterion
that's another one.
came out at that point.
I'm pretty sure that Criterion was not at the time.
I've only seen that on Criterion. That movie looks
I would love to redo that top 10 list, because first of all, I think like my number one would be different, because obviously like the way I make lists now is way different. But the list would be so different too. Like it'd be fun to do. Right. So
yeah, 68 would probably be an easy year to run back to too. It probably isn't too
like,
much to prep
knowing
for.
what I know
it's not
now
too much,
is
no.
like a banger of the year, honestly.
Well, that was like our first time doing a retro one, so I know I only watched like 20 movies, you know.
Yeah,
I can just think of like 5-6 movies like off the top of my head from 68 that I know are like insane.
Yeah.
All right,
Spider
Tyler.
Baby, that was 68, right?
What movie?
Spider Baby.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's considered 60.
No, that's 60.
I think it might be a different year now.
I think it's 67 now.
Yeah,
I hate that.
Isn't the original production date 65 on that film?
It got shelved for a while, I think.
Yeah, like it's crazy.
Yeah. All right, so I got here via spy number 454, and it is David Cronenberg's eXistenZ. Weird title of the movie. I always used to just pronounce it eXistenZ, but
I thought it was eXistenZ.
It is.
It is eXistenZ.
It's hard. It's hard to say. eXistenZ.
eXistenZ. Yeah.
Sounds like you're saying eggs.
It's a made up word.
Man, I haven't seen this forever, man.
Yeah, this was like I was really excited about this release for that reason. I'd only seen it once before, and it was like a real long time ago, and it was like kind of long enough where I didn't really have a real opinion of it. And since then, like I was pretty green on Cronenberg probably when I'd seen this, and since then like I've seen like 18 Cronenberg movies. He's like my number one like favorite director. I love Cronenberg. I love it. Like his
goes to prove again he's the most Canadian American I've ever met.
I love the hockey, loves the Cronenberg lens. He's so good at just like creating these like weird dystopian like unique worlds. I think like body horror kind of makes me like uncomfortable in general. And I think it took me a while to realize like that's like maybe one of the reasons like I like him. And he just like has this way of like hitting this like really cerebral note in like almost these like weird worlds. It's just so good. And yeah, this movie didn't have a good release for like I don't think it even had a Blu-ray, so jumping right to 4K like this is always great. Obviously, like there's a lot in here. You have like the hard shell like they have on these. This comes with a booklet. Then it's got this with a slipcover. I think this edition is sold out. You can just get the standard, which looks like this. But I appreciate always like the nice packaging and stuff, but I will say that one of the complaints I think the packaging on this is kind of ugly. I think they could have been better reflective like of the film in this packaging. But
yeah, they should have given it to us in just like flesh pod package, just like an actual flesh pod that you can open up.
Yeah, like the flesh pods in this movie is like so gross. But
man, that's a good idea. That would have been fucking cool, man.
Yeah, like I mean, awesome. I could see people loving the packaging on it. So, but for me, like if it's like you can still buy this version, I don't think you're missing a whole ton with the packaging.
Yeah, when I got that in the mail, I was like, oh,
yeah, it's a little ugly,
it's ugly.
But
yeah.
Gun for Jennifer Art too. Terrible. Sorry, had to say that.
Yeah, it's not my favorite one either, for sure. I'll admit that.
Not the best.
But yeah, being a huge Cronenberg fan, like I kind of have like a higher level, like a high bar to hit for him. You know, even though I'm probably also more gentle on his movies because I like him so much. But Yeah, this is definitely one of his more lesser known titles. I've noticed has actually picked up like a lot more reception, like well regarded in the last couple of years. I don't know if that's because people like it's just now it's because people are just looking for like his next layer of movies that don't have releases. But
What year is eXistenZ?
96, I believe. 99.
99.
Oh,
I was gonna say, I
99.
think it's
Yeah,
later.
96 is Crash.
this movie looks so 90s. Like it's like that's the first thing. It's like that perfect blend of like late 90s, 2000s, where like you're kind of gotten away from like the grungy, like muted 90s into this almost like poppy, like colorful, like boy bands are big and shit. So this movie is very bright. Just like palette wise. I honestly will say like I think this like the color palette of this movie is honestly like a little ugly too, but it kind of it has a unique look because it's like the entire movie is like you don't really know what's like happening in reality sometimes in this movie, and this movie a lot of this takes place in like this video game world. But to get there, so you have it starts at like this conference where we're in like it's something we said before, even like about Brandon Cronenberg too, where it feels like it's in the future, but it doesn't feel like crazy in the future, like maybe just like a decade or two. But um it's they're at this like video game like this little like very close like 12 person like video game like debut for like this very prestigious like video game like maker. And now like video games have gone to a point of like virtual reality where you literally like plug into the system, like into the game. Like the consoles look like just it's so like almost like guts or flashbacks. They're so gross looking. Like, but they don't like they do a good job in with the effects with this because this is something that easily could look like terrible, like looking back at 25 years later. But they really do hold up. They do look nice. Nice isn't the right word, but they look realistic. But anyways, yeah. So you're at this like little closed like conference where they're debuting a video game, and it's like hosted by the video games designer, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh of Fast Times at Ridgemont High and a ton of other movies. It's one of
One of
my
my
favorite
favorites.
actresses. I love her so much. That's
Craziest,
one of my favorite
craziest crimped
actors.
hair.
She
I
has like
lo-
so yeah, she's just in so many cool different types of movies and still in like movies today, in like in Brandon Cronenberg movies today, for instance. But
She's
yeah,
incredible.
yeah, I'm a big fan of her. She's a great person to carry a film, and she's like this head like designer of like of these video games. Her name's Allegra Geller in it, and so she's gonna plug in with like this play system, and they're all gonna go to like a virtual reality, which is like Cronenberg really has this way of being like kind of predictive in his movies. Like Videodrome is something I watch now, where it's like I'm sure video like I feel now like Videodrome is like almost like a modern interpretation of like what social media is of having these people like
Yeah,
so
super
plugged in.
ahead of
And like
its
maybe
time,
he
dude.
didn't like like think that in particular, but like there's like it's this idea of like being part of this like hive mind where you're so interconnected into something detached from
It's like he
reality.
has a crystal ball, man.
Yeah, in this
yeah,
movie,
that's today's social media, man.
like
Yeah.
the way where they plug in and like almost go to this virtual reality, it almost feels like reminiscent of like these open world games that where people get together online and then they go like on quests and they do random stuff together. Like being in 1999, like we were a couple of years away from that. I don't like there wasn't really like there
Mhm.
wasn't this online world of like playing on video games either. I don't think that really came out until like
No.
probably a couple years later with
Mhm.
Xbox Live. That was like really like the first step in something like this. So this like way that we're all gonna go into this world and play like this like free roaming game together was it's also like it is like a little predicate of the future. And I mean I don't foresee us like getting ports installed on us so we can play video games, but like the idea that like this game like has like the ability to like bring out like characteristics actually of you because it's connected to you and apply it to this like this virtual reality world is really cool. So they're plugging in and playing this game at this like convention, the opening scene. Like kind of talk about this broadly because like there's a lot that like kind of it's this is like one of those like House of Cards domino movies where like you can't really like give away too much because it all like ties in together at the end.
Right.
But they're plugging in to like play the session, and then so there's someone in the crowd that like appears and so that like got into the system and just starts shooting. And Allegra Gill herself like gets shot in the shoulder, and her PR agent slash security guard played by Jude Law, that's what helps her escape. Some other important people get shot. But he helps her get out, and the way like and he has to get her to safety and protect her like at all costs, and the way they disconnected from the game like puts everything she had like at risk of like getting destroyed. Like this game she spent like years on and like tried to develop like it like organically through all these like weird like sci-fi like channels that we don't really understand yet. And she has to log into the game to go and try to fix it, because it's like almost like when like you like rip out like a flash drive or something where it says like might be corrupted. It's like the same deal, like the way they get disconnected like from this game. But the thing is, she can't go alone. She has to go in with someone, and and you like I said, you have to have this literal port like installed like in the bottom of your spinal cord, so you can plug into these video games and play like in this like virtual world. And the guy she's with like doesn't have one, like the guy played by Jude Law. So they have to go to like usually it's probably like I imagine the way how simple they make it sound in this world is probably as simple as like going to like an ear piercing station or some place that does pierces in the real world.
Players doing bioport
Yeah.
installations.
So but they have to go to like this black
It's
market
the right place to do some
like
plugging.
yeah, like to get this plug installed because they're like on like the run and shit, and like he's protecting, and like they have to like all their safety's threatened. So they go to like this black market guy she trusts, played with Willem Dafoe, who just like also just a terrific character actor showing up in movies as old as this. But yeah, and then like you see this cool scene where he actually like installs this fucking port on him, so he can plug in and play like the games with her. And like more gets revealed about that later on. But like I said, it's kind of like the House of Cards type movies where everything like falls together at the end. So they go into this game and like you get this first sense of this virtual reality. And like, oh, this is like one thing I kind of even didn't mention about the shooting. So like this movie has like this real like tendency of like just like he really embraces the body horror in this, and like everything in this movie is like organically made. The killer like had like a organically made gun like made of like living flesh and shit, and like had like that like fired like bones and teeth at bullets like to get past security. So that's like a recurring thing where all these people have these like really gross looking like bio weapons that like shoot out teeth and stuff. It's really freaking cool. There's a couple of scenes like they have to pull like it out of them. It's gnarly. Um, yeah, so like they're in this world where everything like it revolves around the same like all the devices they use it like this all just like this biomaterial, and they keep like just finding themselves like in different scenarios in different worlds because they also have to like in the real world. It's hard to tell like what the real world is sometimes. Like in the real world, they also have to be like safe from like where they're like playing and not getting like that someone's not gonna come and kill them because like they obviously tried to assassinate her already, and like they're in this virtual world, like it's there's like because of the scenario they're in, like if they die, like they could actually die for they like they'll actually like die for real in the game, so there's like a whole nother level of danger with that too. Um, but yeah, she has to repair her game, and like it's just like the way like all like like I don't really know exactly everything thematically that this film was trying to say. It's probably a film you'd have to watch like a couple times to really have a real example of it. I think it's just like kind of like in the video drum world where it's about just like this weird interconnected society. And so they're like going through this virtual world just trying to find the cure for like why all these organic like materials are dying, because that's like the life of her game. So she has to like solve the problem like in the game to save the game, and it goes in like some really weird places. You find like along the way they meet like also like different types of character actors like Willem Dafoe, and like you find out different things about them, and there's twists in this everywhere. I even kind of like throughout like the first half of this movie was kind of going into like the last act. I kind of was like not the hottest. I thought it was good, but I was like, yeah, but it's not like one of his strongest, but it's like it's fine. I was kind of in that tier, but like the way this movie like wraps up and you start to learn about more people and like their motivations and how they relate to the game, and like how people's like realities interact with the game, and then finally when they like get out of it and you get like the reveal at the end, it's like it really like raised another bar for me. It's shot really well, it's acted really well. I think anyone really could have done Jude Law's part. I've never been like that hot on him, but he does like a good, he does like a service enough job for this. But Jennifer Jason Leigh's great. I just love her, so I'm also kind of just like biased to these people. Anything with like kind of like quirky character actors is just like a whole layer of like another layer of like seasoning and flavor to me. So I always like when those are in these movies. And Cronenberg has a really good approach to this movie. Like one of his more split movie Scanners. I would say like a lot of people have a problem with the lead, and I totally get like the guy sounds like a Martian, and I'm never gonna like pretend like that's like a good performance. But even in that, just the way he talks like this like guy that's like completely from a different world, it almost like helps create this just like this flavor of like dystopian like weird sci-fi future. And he just like he really applies it in a lot of his movies. I like that. I guess this movie shot paint like you will definitely if you lived in the 90s like you'll definitely know this is a 90s movie. Everything about it screams 90s, but the effects hold up pretty well for a movie made in 1999. I know like there's a lot. I wonder how much it's practical. I didn't really dive into the special features like you guys did. Maybe they would
You
provide.
fucking die.
I mean, I don't blame you. Like the special features on eXistenZ is insane. Like I'm
Is
kind
it
of
a
glad that I
lot?
picked the black room and had like 4 interviews to watch.
Yeah, dude. Like there's a lot of different stuff on here, but they kind of had to put the bells and whistles for a release like that.
Yeah, Cronenberg.
But yeah, this was a really like even like I do like even so like I don't think this is like one of Cronenberg's best, but that's like it's kind of like hard to like break his like top 10 movies like I respect like so much that like there's like it's hard to even like break into that tier. That even like middle tier Cronenberg is like really really good.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, some of the I didn't jump like I said I didn't jump into these, but there's a lot of special features on this. You got off like I said the first time in 4K. You got a Blu-ray disc full of all bunch of specials. You got there's a 22-minute there's a 22 minute new interview with an art director. There's a bunch of little directors with like effects artists and uh some of the producers. There's nothing. It doesn't look like there's anything that's like brand new with like Cronenberg on here. He's got a commentary track. There's like 4 different commentary tracks on here. One's with a film historian that we were talking about earlier.
Those are the
Um,
best.
yeah, it looks like it looks like is the newest one. There's an archival with Cronenberg, an archival with visual effects artist, and one with a cinematographer, but they're not like on it together. It's kind of weird how they're like not all on it together. They're all just separate commentaries. I like
Yeah.
it when there's like more people like to remind each other of different stories and stuff, and
Hmm.
that's usually kind of cool. Then there's a bunch of little like interviews with people that range from like 10 minutes to like 22 minutes. And then there is a 48-minute feature with a production designer. So like there's a lot of really cool worlds, like I said, the organic material and just like different things that like different represent different people in this movie. So like there's definitely like a lot, even if I think it looks a little ugly just because of I don't know, that's just like like the time. I don't really love the color hue in this movie, but that's just me. But there was definitely like a lot of care put into it. So I'm sure a lot of that stuff, like people who like collect their special features less than I do, will be really into this. Cronenberg's a pretty high bar for me. Um, like I said, it's not one of his best movies, but it is a very good movie. I would give this movie like a 7.5 out of 10.
Sweet.
But this is a really good release. I knew we were eventually going to get this. I honestly thought it was going to come from Criterion just because
Yeah, I would think so too.
Yeah, me
just
too.
'cause they've
Yeah.
been
Me too.
doing a
It
lot
They
of
totally
stuff.
seemed like a
screamed
Criterion.
Yeah, well,
release.
they have a bunch of his other movies, and they had it playing like on the streaming service for a little while. So to me, it
Right.
was like we're eventually just gonna get like we're only gonna get this. But honestly, like for this movie, I kind of like I think Vinegar Syndrome's a really good home for it. I'm actually surprised this isn't a sub label, not like a VSU. But
Yeah,
yeah,
me
this
too,
is a
actually.
really good release. This is definitely like the title too. That's gonna bring in people who might not typically like Vinegar Syndrome.
Yeah.
There's definitely like a gateway title, but it also fits in nicely. And yeah, transfer looks great, like always. Like I always say, like if we're talking strictly transfer, like in production wise, like I think Vinegar Syndrome is like the hard number one in the game, and it's like
Yeah,
it's really
for
hard to
sure.
touch them. I'm not saying they have the best catalog all the time, but like if you like just strictly like release quality and like
They're the
transfers,
best.
they are the
Yeah.
best. Like it's like if you're a collector, like have a good variety of labels, like you'll agree with this. It's like not even like close.
Yeah, they're definitely the best at polishing turds.
Yeah, like they make some movies look so much better than anyone thought they ever would have looked.
They've released some movies. I'm just like, this shit shouldn't look this fucking good, man.
Terror 10 Killer.
What?
Terror 10 Killer. It's like the greatest 4K I've ever seen in my life. The movie went from like a VHS you couldn't see shit on to being the most beautiful 4K I've ever seen in my life. It's unbelievable.
I still haven't watched that, but I watched it on like DVD, like back in.
Which one are we talking about?
Terror 10 Killer.
Oh my god,
like that slasher film.
I have that fucking DVD double feature. I haven't watched a Blu-ray yet either, but it looks that good because that shit was like horrible looking. Man.
Like you couldn't see shit.
No, it's dark.
DVD. It looks amazing. Like it's such a substantial upgrade. It's like mind blowing.
Dude, I had one of those moments with Drive-In Massacre, and I'll never forget watching that movie on so many like gray market DVDs and shitty releases for years. And never knowing that there was a decapitation in the beginning of the film because it was so dark until the Blu-ray came out. I was like, what the fuck? It's like a totally different movie. I've never seen this
I haven't really had an experience yet where like it was something I saw like a long time ago that looked like shit and now looks incredible in 4K. But I remember like I was watching
Boggy Creek. That's mine. Yeah. Legend of Boggy Creek.
I don't think I have a movie that I have like with Vinegar Syndrome in particular that I have that like comparison with. But I remember like I always pick up like I always like go crazy like on like when they have like all the deals when they go on sale. And I picked up that movie Penitentiary like during a sale last year. And I remember just like watching them like it looks so good like just on this Blu-ray and thinking like this movie was made for like a fucking ham sandwich.
I wish that they would release the third one. There's a third one. So they released 1 and 2, but there's a third one, which I found out from watching 1 and 2, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't know.
I think Scorpion put out Penitentiary 3.
Did they really? Shit.
I think so.
I hate it when they just do that. Just give us it all from one place.
Yeah,
I know.
A little off topic, Tyler, but have you ever seen Heart of Midnight before with Jennifer Jason Leigh?
Yeah, I actually have. That's the one where she's like a strip club owner or something.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't remember a whole lot about it. I remember thinking it was okay.
That movie's fucking trippy. It kind of feels like a David Lynch movie. It's so trippy.
She has a lot of really interesting projects. Like there's like I kind of like the way I tend to watch movies. Like I'll find like after a couple of movies, I'll like probably find a filmmaker I'm really interested in, and I'll just kind of go through their filmography. And she's like showed up in a lot of people's movies I really like Robert Altman. Mm-hmm. She's in a couple of his movies. She works with she's worked with like Abel Ferreira, like Cronenberg. She's a bunch of really cool. Jane Campion's another one I came across, and she works with a lot of like really cool directors.
Yeah, no, she's worthy, man, because she's good. She's good.
Yeah,
it's always been good. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, you gave that one 7.5. Is that what that was?
Yeah,
yeah, cool. All right, so I guess it's feature review time.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Okay, yes, I'll take it away. We're just so unorganized. Okay, so for the featured review, we collectively agreed on doing so JP, you mentioned us kind of picking like the more popular title. I think it's more what we kind of agree to do or what we don't want to do solo. I don't know.
It's kind of like that. I mean, there really wasn't like a popular release per se this time.
I think this is a fun one.
This was like a big deal, right? That this came out.
Yeah, I think this was the right choice because it's a slasher film from 1984 that's been in obscurity forever, VHS obscurity. So this basically went from VHS to Blu-ray, and it's so crazy, and that's Fatal Games. Which I do like this new commission artwork. I've heard people say they don't really care for it.
I love that.
I love that.
Like
yeah,
I think it's amazing.
It's funny because the first couple reviews that I saw,
like it doesn't look incredibly 80s, but it looks fucking cool.
It's better than the extra one, the fucking Nintendo scratch off one.
Yeah, even the back is pretty cool, man. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like
but
that.
This is what I'm more familiar with.
Yeah, I always like posters like that. I love reversible art for that reason.
Yeah, so Fatal Games, 1984 slasher film, very much in the vein of Graduation Day. In fact, there's some parts in here that are straight rip-offs of Graduation Day. It's actually quite funny. But yeah, very, very happy that Vinegar Syndrome got the rights or found the rights or whatever and released this, because like I said, VHS to Blu-ray, we're living in that golden age of collecting. Can't be any happier to get something like this, because as we're all mostly big slasher fans here, it's something that we all needed for the collection, because it was definitely eluding it for everybody. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, Fatal Games 1984. Basically the plot of the film is
it's kind
people,
of a little bizarre.
It's well, the reveal is bizarre.
There's a bunch of weird reveals.
The reveal is so funny in this movie. Like, watch.
It's basically about these high school kids that are training for the Olympics and stuff, and multiple Olympic categories like gymnastics and javelin and stuff like that.
High school kids train for Olympics?
It's
college kids.
That's
these kind kids do.
Yeah.
These kids do.
I know. You would think this was college, because everyone that plays these high school kids are clearly 28, 29 years old. Like, everyone's so old. But yeah, it is weird, because this high school is clearly trying to, it's almost like they're competing with the Europeans and the Russians too. Like, that's kind of this kind of subtext in the film, right? I think the Americans were doing it at the same time, but yeah, the Russians and the Europeans at the time were doing this shit for years with the hormones and all this stuff. So they're kind of playing off that in the film and stuff. But anyways, so these kids are all competing for their state nationals and stuff to go to the Olympics and shit like that. And ultimately the team starts getting picked off one by one. And basically all the winners start getting picked off one by one by an assailant that is killing them with a javelin. Like,
javelin kills.
The fucking javelin, dude. Like, it is the funniest weapon. Well, it's not. It's one of the funniest. It's definitely
it's kind of funny, dude. It's funny. Really funny.
It's pretty funny.
You know what makes this movie
one of the most inefficient weapons.
What makes this movie funny with the javelin is when the reveal happens. Like, dude, I don't know what it is about it, but it fucking kills me, man. But
just watching,
dude, when they start like have the like final act scene where all the bodies start turning up, it's like so like on the lockers with the music, it's just so funny. I just like kept laughing.
I love the dude's face, like when he like opens all the lockers and then he like opens up his like girlfriend's locker and he has like the doofiest, like most like anti like scared face. He's just like
yeah, that's funny too, because like her face is here and her foot is like right here. She's all like busted up and shit. Like, it's funny. I just love the fact that like took the time to go and stuff all the bodies in these symmetrical lockers. Like that shit.
Ooh, I wonder if they like stuffed them in their own lockers. I didn't check that out.
No, yeah, maybe because it was more or less like the gym lockers, right? So it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, there's some really weird undertones in this film too. Like, when you think about, I always thought it was so strange in 80s slasher films, like in any type of film, really, when you have like just when you have high school, like they're supposed to be high school kids, right? So they're 16, 17 years old and stuff, and like just sex scenes with high school kids, like showing their titties and stuff, like they're supposed to be kids, right? I always found that really funny. But
I don't know why they didn't just make these kids college kids.
I know, it's funny.
They're
when you
all
put
naked.
Perspective. Like, everyone's naked. There's so much muff. There's so much titties in this movie. There's so much there's so much
like nudity. Straight locker room scene with just bushes and asses everywhere.
But it's literally high school kids. Like, it's high school kids. It's just kind of funny when you put it in perspective. But there's this really weird kind of subplot in the film with the swimming coach and one of the swimmers. Like, they're like a lesbian couple. Like, she's a teacher at a high school, and that's just like so wrong. Like, that even in 1984, that was probably not acceptable. Like, it's crazy.
It's so topical nowadays too, with like the whole like doctor that was
and I'm not talking about the lesbian
like
aspect. I'm talking
like
about
the gymnasts and all that
the
stuff.
Athlete A. They did a documentary on Netflix about that guy.
Right.
Yeah, and I wasn't talking about the whole lesbian. I was just talking about the teacher-student relationship. Like, that's just bizarre to me. Like, it's straight up in the film, and then there's just so much. Like, I know it sounds kind of prudy, but it's not. It's just the way you perceive the film. Like, they're high school kids. If it's college, it's like a totally different thing, right? Because you expect that from college kids. That they're older. They're of age. We're supposed to see them naked. Technically, right?
What's funny about like the swim coach and like the students that didn't even really seem that bad, because like the student's old, so it's like, oh, this is like a nice sweet little couple, they're cute.
Yeah. Why didn't I win? You were the best coach ever. And I'm like, because you probably sucked. Like,
that part. Oh my
you
God.
can coach the shit out of somebody, but if you don't have the talent to win, you're not going to win. It's just it's rather funny to me. But Fatal Games is a film that I've always enjoyed. I feel like Fatal Games for myself is like one of those slasher films that like it doesn't sit on the top shelf, it doesn't sit on the bottom shelf, it sits right mid-level.
Like
it's like a mid-level tier. I think one of the biggest faults for Fatal Games is that if you're very familiar with Graduation Day, it steals a lot from that, especially the scene where the doctor where he shows the people the picture of the team and they're all X'd out. Like that's a scene taken straight from Graduation Day. It's a total ripoff, straight up. But I mean, and it's also like Fatal Games, I think is also it kind of suffers from the kind of post slasheritis. Like, I mean, slashers were so big from 81, 82, 83, 84. They were really kind of dying off. Everyone's trying to start making more films. And
yeah, it almost feels like this one is like should have came out in like 81 or something.
Yeah, it probably would have done a little bit better if it had came if it was a rip off of Graduation Day right after it probably would have been a little bit more acceptable. But I feel like so many years after, it's like they were sitting on it like, well, Graduation Day is probably out of people's minds now, so we'll just steal some elements from that and make our own kind of fucking high school. That's the thing about it
too, is like it's not really like that violent after you've seen like a slew of like much more violent slasher movies.
Well, that's the thing with this movie. I feel like the body count's super low. I think there's only 5 people that end up getting killed in this. Like there's potential, but given the narrative that the killer's also killing off the winners of these things too. So there isn't that many, and the team's not that big too, but I feel like they could have strayed off like a lot of slasher films. You always have those scenes where
people catch
people come into a scene and they're a product of
just
bad
like
timing.
Some janitor.
But nobody really dies in this film. Like the killer stays very specific to who they are killing, and the body count's very low, and it's not actually that bloody or gory either. The kills aren't they're not that great, but in terms, of the actual kill, but it's just the weapon that kind of sells the kills. I think the most bizarre kill in this film for myself is the fact that the killer went out of its way to put on scuba gear, go in the fucking pool, watch her do laps, and then wait for that moment to fucking jab. Like,
can we talk about that scene real quick?
So
because
stupid.
Like watching that on VHS in the 90s, like when I was a kid, like this was one of those tapes that was so incredibly dark, just like all the other cheap VHSs. Like the underwater scene, I had no idea what the hell was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But watching this Blu-ray, I'm like, this is actually shot kind of cool. Like I love like the looking up at the swimmer going back and forth.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's fucking stupid and it makes no sense at all.
Yeah, it's going way out of your way to kill somebody, but I still that kill is like ridiculous. But the funniest kill in the film is the actual javelin thrower, Joe, who gets killed from the top of the stadium. Dude, that throw is literally the funniest thing in slasher history, because that thing is like a fucking rocket. But it's
a cannon.
Tyler said that Tyler said that weapon wasn't efficient. I'm like, tell that to the javelin guy. That dude got fucking sniped from like 300 yards away.
Dude, I was like, oh my god, that is so... I forgot about that, man, because I hadn't seen it in years, and I was like, oh my god, so funny.
Yeah, I've never seen this.
Who the fuck is this? Like Willie Mays throwing bombs from the outfield?
Right.
And I swear that javelin guy was like 40 years old.
Totally.
That was actually the brother, the mute brother from Boogeyman, the Uli Lomel movie from 1980.
Oh, really?
Oh, shit.
Wow.
And I don't know if you guys noticed.
Also a Vinegar Syndrome release.
Yeah, true.
Did you notice that when he was in the shower with everybody, he was the only one that was like showering with his jock strap on?
Yeah.
That shit was like cracking me up in the back. I'm like, damn, that dude just does not want to show dong.
It's a funny movie too, because you don't see a lot of these high school type films where you see in the male locker room them running around snapping each other with wet towels. You don't see that very often. I thought that was such a bizarre scene. I had such a good time revisiting this, because I was like, I hadn't seen it in so long, and I was like, oh fuck, man. But it's so cool to see, the transfer's not like an A plus, but it looks the best it's ever looked, and you can make out everything in the film. Like, it is what it is. They obviously did the best they could with the transfer and stuff. There's really no imperfections. It's more, I think it's more just a little bit washed out because of probably the print that they had, but
yeah,
it still looks fantastic. It still looks really, really fantastic.
Yeah, so basically what they struck this transfer off of is something called a dupe negative that they found in France. And apparently that's just like a print that is made from like whatever it is. And that's the print they used to strike 35 millimeter prints off of. So it's basically just like a 35 millimeter quality print.
Right.
But they found that shit in France, of all places.
So there was so they literally couldn't find something.
Dude, fucking France.
North America. Yeah, it's crazy, dude. So there really is nothing left for elements.
Code Red, they like announced that shit like in 2009.
Yeah, I remember. And I remember, I think we talked about this one time too. And I was like, where the fuck is Fatal Games or whatever? And it never, who knows with Bill at the time? Like, he could have been, oh, I got this. Maybe he was working out a deal for some print and it never came through. Who knows?
Yeah, he probably got the rights, but just couldn't find an element anywhere.
Yeah, probably couldn't find him. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a fun little slasher. Nothing like amazing or anything, but it's more humorous with just like the javelin killer, and then that absurdity of the end of the film, the reveal.
Yeah, the actual reveal in this film is really funny, actually, to me. Like, it's funny in a way because, like, as kind of unoriginal as this film is, it did have a pretty memorable reveal.
Yeah, the reveal, like the way they do it too, is really cool. Like, that's the best part of this movie. That like lasts like 10-minute, 15-minute chase scene, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a nice little surprise too. And like they kind of like hint to what's gonna happen like earlier in the movie, but you don't really like understand like the depths of where it's actually gonna go.
Right.
So it's actually really sweet.
Yeah.
Yep. So anybody got anything else on this one?
Yeah, I have a couple things. Like, I want to talk about the intro and how amazing and like catchy like the music is. The music is
music is good in this movie.
Dude, take it to the limit. It kind of reminded. It's like they took those lyrics from like the Scarface theme, but just did it like super 80s cheeseball slasher style.
Oh my gosh, that's it's like the same thing. Push it to the limit. It's the same fucking song.
It totally is, but it's like done totally different. I started laughing. I was like, dude, it's totally the Scarface song. Fuck.
So like I want to talk about a little bit about like the doctor that's like injecting these students full of like performance enhancing drugs,
which is like code name for straight up steroids, I think.
Right.
I don't think
well, because they hint at it with the Joe character, because they totally
were.
lead into like, oh, Joe's the killer. Obviously it's the worst red herring ever, because he obviously was not going to be the killer since he was the javelin thrower, but like he's all angry and shit for no reason. And
that dude is so ugly too. He like looks like Tom Brady's like courtroom like sketch. You remember that from back in the day?
Yeah. Dude, that's funny.
But do you guys remember that scene like when the doctor is talking to the nurse and then he gets off the phone and he takes a pin and he like impales a cockroach?
Yeah.
What the fuck was that all about?
So I wrote on my thing and I was like, so this is American animal cruelty or something? I'm like, because I'm thinking like, Italian, they're out killing animals. So we just kill insects with pins.
Right.
Like, he likes pins.
I love that he like stabbed this cockroach, and the person who edited the movie decided it was a good idea to like put like a squelching, like impaling like noise. It was like when he like impaled this cockroach. It was so funny to me.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. Really, really bizarre.
Oh, and did you guys notice the Linnea Quigley cameo in this movie too?
Yeah, no. I thought that was really funny, actually.
I can't remember, honestly, bro.
Because she's in Graduation Day also. That's the other connection with the two films. Yeah.
And The Black Room.
And the
baby.
So it's like when the final girl is laying on the table and getting massaged by the nurse, Linnea Quigley's basically the butt body double, and you don't see her face.
Oh, I was like,
that's her role in the movie.
Yeah,
that's funny. I didn't catch it either.
Yep.
I also love how the movie, like a lot of the athletes that are acting it are actually played by the athletes. I thought that was really sweet. Like
Yeah, that was
actually
like one thing I
watching
thought
them.
about this movie. Like this was a good excuse to have like a bunch of like athletic looking people get naked.
Right. And they were actually doing the gymnastics and the swimming and all that stuff. I was impressed.
Yeah.
Which also meant that their acting was piss poor.
Yeah,
like I remember
was rough.
like when the final girl's like about to get thrown out of the Olympics for bad grades, and she's like talking to her dad, and she's like, "But daddy, like I'm a gymnast, a damn good one, and I'm gonna do this. You can't stop me, daddy." And there's like some fucking crazy, like ridiculous, like melodramatic music playing in the background.
I love the dad's
Dude, I
reaction
love
too.
it
He
when
just kind of
movies do
looks
that.
at her
It's so funny.
and just doesn't even say anything, and he just wraps his arm, and then they just leave. I'm just like,
That's the
was
last
he
you
just
see
shocked
him.
at how bad her acting was? And he's like, I'm not even saying my line. Oh,
Jesus.
dude,
I
you
need
know
a
what this
beer.
movie has that is literally the most bizarre thing ever? So there's a scene towards the beginning of the film where I'm assuming the principal or the dean or whatever, I guess not dean, principal, is giving a speech about finances, and it's just like a big dry speech and stuff, and then the kids start basically throwing food at each other, and it breaks out into a fucking huge tug-of-war scene. I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, those are some strong ass paper towels.
Like, who wrote that shit, man? Why would you write in a huge ass tug-of-war scene?
They're just competing kids.
Oh,
Just
man.
let them.
I
Let 'em
guess
fight
that's
it
what
out.
it's about. Yeah, they're all super competitive, right? Yeah. That's funny. It's ridiculous though. But
Were you guys paying attention to like the original soundtrack and all the weird noises?
mhm.
Like it'd be like you'd be like they'd be like in an office building and there'd just be like wind noises because that's just like what the soundtrack was. It just sounded so goofy.
Yeah,
Oh
they're
my
just
God.
using fucking
I didn't
stock sound
notice
effects
that.
too. Stock sound effects, yeah.
I like that keyboard beat they had at the end, like in that final chase.
Mhm.
I didn't check out any of the interviews on here. Did you guys watch any of the interviews on the Blu-ray?
No.
Yeah, I don't own this.
Yeah, I listened to a few of them. One was with the final girl, and that's where she like mentioned the Linnea Quigley body double. But then she was talking about how like she was okay with doing nudity, but since she was like an athlete at the time, like all of her agents and people were like, no, you can't fucking do that shit.
Right.
So that's when they brought in Linnea.
Yeah.
But then they brought in a couple other
Interesting.
guys. Like one was the dude that like broke his leg and like missed the nationals.
Yeah.
Fred or Frank, whatever the fuck that guy's name was. Which I love him as a character too. Like him and his girlfriend, they were a cute couple.
Yeah, and that the girl that plays his girlfriend is actually from oh dude, what movie is she from? I think she was in Beverly Hills Cop 2, actually. She's in a bunch of bigger movies after that. She had a really short career, but she was in a few big movies. And she was in The Last Boy Scout also. But I recognized her right away. I was like, who is that? And I looked her up, and I think she was in Hard Bodies also. So a few notable movies.
Movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's crazy, man. What's her face? Sally Kirkland's in this movie too. It's crazy. She won Academy Awards. She's still acting, for Christ's sake. Still winning awards. It's fucking nuts.
Damn.
Yeah. But yeah, it's super nice to have Fatal Games in the collection.
Yeah.
I love the last shot of this movie too, like when the credits roll. This shit, that's pretty funny.
They used to do that shit all the time back in the 80s. Like I like that. Yeah, I like it too.
I wish I would just bring freeze frame like credits back because it just like it literally just ends abruptly. It's like boom, the end. It's like we don't even need anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So ratings?
That was a good way of like kind of, summing up your budget right there. Like we could take it a little bit further, but we actually can't. So done.
We took it to the limit.
We took it to the limit. Exactly. Oh my God. I was hoping something. I actually forgot about the song at first, but I have it written down. But man, right away I was like, oh my God. It just reminds me of the opening of The Mutilator. The funniest fucking music ever, dude.
That is like the greatest.
We're gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
ever.
We're gonna have a good. Oh my god, dude, it's so funny.
Have a good time.
It just gets stuck in your head for weeks, man. Every time you hear that shit.
Did that second one ever come out yet?
No, I think that comes out this year.
Yeah,
at least I hope.
Something that Bloody Disgusting didn't put on their top 51 films or whatever.
Yeah,
later too.
I think it was on there last year.
Like it's the same director too, right?
Yeah.
Director.
Oh yeah, I forgot this guy's. I thought you were talking about like a sequel. Yeah, I forgot this guy's been trying to make a second one for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch the trailer for it?
No.
It's really weird. Like it has a lot of the same like cast. It's almost kind of like the Town That Dreaded Sundown remake / sequel, whatever the fuck you want to call it.
It's actually like, a sequel.
Because like I think the Mutilator actually exists in the world of the sequel, kind of like the Town That Dreaded Sundown. Yeah. But there's weird little cameos in that trailer. Like Art the Clown is in the movie. The Mutilator too. Yeah, watch the trailer. Art the Clown just makes an appearance. Weird.
So it's like overlapping
connected universe.
Yeah, like
I universes, have no idea.
Weird alternate realities are connecting. That's weird.
Right, it's so strange. So that's I'm like super excited.
I can't even see a connection there.
With Art he probably like he's probably I don't know, maybe he knew him for something, and maybe this is probably even before like Terrifier 2 they filmed this, and I don't know, maybe they just got him like, do you want to hop on the set for a second?
Yeah, maybe they were at like a convention or something and said, hey, you want to do this weekend? I'm sure that's how like a lot of movies are made.
I kind of feel like it had to have been a couple of years ago, because I feel like after Terrifier 2 that he wouldn't have done that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Maybe. Definitely not now.
Yeah, like
he was the guy who played Art the Clown did that fucking Grinch movie, the mean one.
Right.
Yeah, which is pretty low budget.
Yeah, I didn't watch that.
Yeah,
I would though.
I tried to. I couldn't find it.
Do you mean like literally Art the Clown or the actor?
No, Art the Clown, the character.
Okay. I just wanted to like clarify.
Oh, for
that.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's so like weird about it.
Yeah, that's like that's the weird part about it. Like I just want to make sure it was a misunderstanding.
So ratings on Fatal Games?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's solid. Like I said, it's kind of middle tier for myself. I honestly, I just wish the kills were just a little bit more amped up. I mean, they're funny enough with the javelin, but there's not really that much blood and gore in the film and stuff. I mean, you get everything else, but I'm gonna give it a solid 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm actually at the same spot, 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Me personally, so for me, like this movie is a little bit more special to me because I grew up with it, and this Blu-ray is pretty much just like a revelation, like seeing things you couldn't see, like stupid scenes where you see like the killer with a javelin, like the shadow, like walking. There's so many of those like established like shadow shots. But I don't know. You guys are gonna love my rating. I'm giving this shit an 8.5.
Whoa.
I love it. And like I love the cast. Like for a slasher movie in the mid 80s, like there's actual like characterization for these people. Like the people that are couples, the red herring, the final girl. It's like, I don't know, they all have an identity to me. And for me, that's kind of rare. Like for something so low budget.
They do have identities for sure. I just don't find any of the characters like overly that interesting. Even though it's a slasher film, we're not like overly too worried. But I mean, there is some slasher films that have pretty intriguing characters and stuff, but no one's shitty. Like no one's here. There's like no super unlikable characters. Like everyone's kind of on that level and stuff. So, which is kind of interesting in itself, because when you usually have a film like this, there's always that one real douche. I guess Joe was kind of your character, but he was just angry. Like he wasn't really like going out of his way to be a dick to people. And he was just angry because he was
a Neanderthal.
Right, because he was being overpumped and shit. So
but yeah, I like it. The killer is pretty iconic to me. Like watching a killer like run through a hallway holding a javelin with two hands, like chasing somebody, is like the stupidest thing you'll ever see in your life. But I don't know, it adds to the charm.
Tyler.
All right. Well, this is fun for what it is. Like I'm kind of with movies like It's kind of in the middle. It's not bad, but there's like much better slashers you could watch. It's not very violent, but it kind of compensates with a little bit more humor. Like it has this kind of like goofy charm, like a lot of other slashers do. Some intentional, some unintentional. I think it could have been a tad shorter, but for the most, it's got plenty of nudity. It's fun. It's kind of like gives what you're looking for when you're looking for a slasher, but it's not one of the best, not one of the worst. Like I'm in the middle. I'll give it a 5.5.
It's actually higher than I expected out of you.
Me too, honestly. Like
I think
I'm
was
happy
bad.
with your
Like,
rating.
Yeah, I didn't think it was.
I was
bad.
expecting like 4.
Nah, like if I'm giving something a 4, I think it's actually bad.
Okay. So I guess that's it for this month, but next month, um, we have a slate of titles. I decided to go with the first cinematographer release, which is Tony, help me out.
Little Darlings.
Little Darlings. It
Starring
just
Tatum
seemed
O'Neal
interesting.
and somebody else. Who was the other girl in Little Darlings? She's like another famous person.
I just watched her in the movie. She's the girl from White Dog.
Yes.
From
I
White
can't
Dog.
remember.
Wow.
Yeah, the girl from White Dog that like finds the dog.
I have no clue, but I picked that one. Just seemed interesting. What did
Chrissy
you guys?
McNichol, that's her name.
That's it. Jamie
Okay.
McNichol's sister, right? Who is the star of Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker?
Oh, nice.
Presumably.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right.
What did you guys pick?
I picked Santet 1 and 2, which I think are Indonesian.
Okay.
Yeah, don't quote me on that. But yeah, I picked that double feature.
I picked Black Cat double feature 1 and 2. Yeah, Hong Kong films. So yeah, I've never seen the sequel before, so I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. I'm also very excited about the cinematograph line. I'm gonna try to stay complete with it while it's still out here in front of me. So I took the other one, and it's John Dahl's Red Rock West. This looks like some sort of crime thriller. Some sort of southern crime thriller, which is pretty cool. It's got Nicolas
Neo-noir.
Cage. It's a neo-noir. It's got a bunch of people I like, and it's got Nicolas Cage, Dennis Hopper. I'm a huge fan of Laura.
Ooh, I love Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, Laura Flamboyant from Twin Peaks. JT Walsh. He's worked a lot with the director I like. What is his name? David Mamet, he does like type of like stage play crime type movies. So I've seen him in a few things. He's kind of a cool actor. But yeah, looking forward to this for sure. I've seen a couple other John Dahl movies that are also kind of the neo noir crime thing.
I like John Dahl.
Yeah.
And then the featured review will be a film that actually me and Moodz have reviewed before on 22 Shots, and that is Southern Comfort.
I didn't know you reviewed that before. Huh.
Yep. We did that in Deliverance, I think.
Like a backwoods episode.
Was that a Patreon show? Because I don't see as
or did
Derek
picked it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Patreon.
Yeah, because this doesn't seem like a movie like you'd pick to review.
No.
But yep, that'll be next month if you guys are interested.
Yeah.
In following along. This was very fun. Honestly, I think it turned out great.
Yeah, cool stuff, man. Cool stuff. All right.
Yeah, not too bad for a first episode.
Yeah.
You did great, Tony. You did great.
Thank you guys.
There's
literally the next episode too. I get to make a trip to the Vinegar Syndrome store, so that's pretty cool.
I get to do 2 reviews next time.
This is awesome. Just little editing on this shit. I'm just gonna keep it raw like this, man. Like whatever. So awesome. Yep. That's gonna conclude episode 1. Be back now. We don't have a schedule.
Next month.
It'll be next month.
Next month.
Yeah. Yep.
So what actually
when availability permits.
Oh, it's January 18th today. Crazy.
Yeah. Next month should be easy for me because I'm not traveling next month. I'm only traveling for like 2 days.
Well, just you wait, JP. You're about to get your subscription package before anybody else.
Yeah.
It should be coming out like next week, I think.
If you pre-ordered stuff, you're usually not part of the last wave, right? It ships like right when it's available.
Subscribers get it first, and then it's I think the people who took part in like the sale or the pre-orders, and then everybody else after, I think.
Okay, yeah, so I should get in that second wave.
All right. Well,
all right.
That's it.
That is done. And we're outie. Good show, guys.
Peace.
Deuces. See ya.